to the Bladtcast. Oh, is that how we always start? Is it always too loud? Is that what we do?
Did we break it? Did we break the internet?
I think we broke the internet, and I think we broke everything.
We gotta crank that baby up.
Well, that's all right. You know what? We'll fix it in post.
Okay.
We do have a little of the man behind the mask.
Yeah.
He's back.
He is back.
Because it is Halloween time.
Yes.
So
That's
what
one of my
better
favorite Friday
Alice
movies.
Cooper song than the song from Friday the 13th, Part 6?
6.
Is that Jason Lives?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not A New Beginning. That's Part 7.
Correct.
With the girl with telekinesis.
Yes.
That's an important distinction to make. Anyway, this is a Bladtcast. Bladtcast 250, and we figured, what would we bring people that they don't usually get? Getting the chance to look at us. So we're sorry, but welcome anyway. For those of you that are just listening to the Bladtcast as usual, the audio-only version, you missed it. You fucked up. But you can still watch it on our YouTube channel, and the link will be at bladtcast.com. But if you're lazy, you can just listen to the audio. And of course, as always, I'm Christian Blatt, at ChristianDMZ. Next to me is the host of the Motivation Report.
Oh, I was like, what?
The host of the Motivation Report,
Yes.
Will Sterling, at Will Sterling _.
That's me.
And Jeff DeRay, not at Captain EO, but at Jeff DeRay.
Mm-hmm.
And
much less interestingly.
while on the road,
Host of at Jeff DeRay on Twitter.
Yeah.
making time for us, the host of driving his car while he talks to us, at Coltrane Leaks, Coltrane!
Hey-o!
How's it going, man? So, Coltrane, thank you for finding some time to be with us. We were going to have you streaming video while you talk to us, but it started to make me really nervous, and I didn't want to cause an accident. I feel like that would have sucked. Don't you agree that it would suck if you had an accident while we were doing the Bladtcast 250?
It would definitely suck. I was willing to be the ratings grabber for you, so I mean there was that, but cause that's how I appreciate the show, and I'm willing to make sacrifices. But you know, that idea was shut down. So what can I do?
Yeah, no, you were willing. You were trying to do it, but you know that's how far you're willing to go for the Wilterage.
Oh, yeah.
Which we haven't talked about in a little while, Coltrane. Let's get an update from Will as to the status of the Wilterage, please.
Still grinding.
We're looking at it right now.
Still grinding.
This is it?
Yeah. I mean, you guys are still part of it, of course.
Sure.
But there's no perks yet.
And Coltrane is the East Coast contingent.
Yes. He's going to start the Crips or whatever.
Which one of us is drama?
Coltrane.
I mean, I'm old, so it's probably me. No. Coltrane is the least drama. What are you talking about?
But he loves all the WikiLeaks stuff. What's it called? Daily Mail?
Daily Mail, yeah. Which, I mean, let's talk about that for a second, Coltrane. You know, there is a Daily Mail TV show now.
Ooh.
Have you noticed that?
I did see that, but they brought in Jesse Palmer to be that guy, and I was like, that's just dumb.
Uh-oh.
Who's
Jesse Palmer just seems dumb, so I don't know.
I feel like the host should have been Coltrane. I mean, the one and only Coltrane. That's the reason I bring it up. Why would anyone other than Coltrane be hosting that show?
I mean, basically because I'm pretty much on point with the Daily Mail. That's pretty much where I get all my news all the time. So I definitely feel like I don't know, I'm a bit more involved in it than he was. So I would have picked me, but that's just me. That
is just you. And hello to everyone watching live on YouTube in the YouTube chat. Jason Blair, annoying, but also ignoring all three of his kids. They're just running around with scissors around the house, but welcome.
Perfect.
And Coltrane, Jason Blair says you would not have an accident while you were FaceTiming in the car because Boston drivers are the best, correct?
I mean, that is a pretty accurate statement.
Jeff DeRay,
I do have that going for me.
Do you stand by that assessment of Boston driving, Jeff DeRay?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
Not at all. I would say that he's actually in imminent danger for a couple reasons. One, we keep talking about it, and so I'm pretty sure we're really putting this out there in the universe. I apologize ahead of time, Coltrane. If anything awful happens, I'll take full responsibility.
Do you think it's possible that I believe they call them the Stadies out that way, the state troopers, are watching the Bladtcast and they're like, wait, this guy is FaceTiming while he's driving. We're going to go find him. So do you think that the red lights are going to pull up behind him while we're on the air?
There's a good chance.
And what are the odds that cop is Paul P?
Very high.
Mm-hmm.
Well, except that I'm more on like back roads than I'm on like highways, so there's not really stadies on back roads.
Watch
So-
out for the racistly named Black Ice.
Okay, I guess there's that.
There was the first bell of the Bladtcast. And by the way, I have not addressed the title of this episode because I was so excited that Coltrane was driving while talking to us. It is called Halfway to a D because of for all of our Roman numeral fans. D is 500.
Oh.
So this is halfway to a D.
Halfway to a D.
Half a D.
Yeah.
Or, as Jeff's girlfriend, Asia Romanoff, suggested, what did she say we should call it?
Just the tip.
Exactly.
Yeah, good. I was like, okay.
That's why we love Asia Romanoff. She
Yeah.
suggested we call it just the
Halfway
tip.
to a D.
Jason Molnar and Farad Muhammad also in the chat. I think I'm one of the 5 people in the chat. I'm actually one of the 6.
Okay, don't
But-
get snarky.
Well, no, I'm
You?
just saying there's not enough people.
Oh, I thought you were saying Farad Muhammad is saying this.
No. Oh, no. Farad's not saying that. No. Farad is a scholar and a gentleman.
Yes.
I'm waiting for at Paul P to check in, but that'd be great to
I think
see.
he's gone. I think he's like.
He still walks the earth like came from Kung Fu.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure.
He
not
might
at
have
this
pissed-
point.
He might have pissed off the wrong person.
Yeah.
Or he's part of the alt-right movement.
Coltrane, there are so many things that we need to talk to you about. There's so much happening in the world, but we need to start somewhere very important. If we had any kind of production, we'd roll out a red carpet, a little production piece for Coltrane's Corner, where we would all, be superimposed in a little corner. Maybe we'd even have the clip from Dirty Dancing where Patrick Swayze says no one puts baby in a corner. We don't have any of that. Instead, we just turn to Coltrane's Corner, and I need to get your expert opinion on this. Playboy has announced that they will have their first transgender centerfold.
Wow.
And 1, have you seen the pictures? 2, how do you feel about this?
I have not seen the pictures, but I did obviously see the article because it was on Daily Mail. So,
Of course.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's sort of irrelevant to me, like one way or another. Like once Playboy sort of decided that they're not like putting naked pictures in there, I was just kind of like, the articles were okay, but not that good. So
Right, but then they immediately went right back.
To Playboy.
Go ahead. Sorry, I won't talk over you. The connection's a little tenuous. But I was going to say they went right back to putting naked pictures back into the magazine. Or I guess it's just a website now. They were going to have no nudes, and then they went back to having some nudes. And now they have the transgender centerfold
just looking at
forthcoming. What do you think? Well, no. Well, let me get Coltrane first.
I don't know. Like I said, I just felt like once Playboy sort of, I got what they were trying to go for when they stopped putting naked pictures in it. And I mean, it's the internet age. Like everyone can see anyone naked. It's not that big a deal. But I mean, I don't know. Like there was just something about it that just seemed like, okay, well, most other magazines like are kind of dying anyway. So it's just kind of like that was still like their thing. So then they sort of eliminated that. And so I just don't really feel like they've been particularly relevant lately. So then I saw that they were putting a transgender model in, and it's like, okay, I feel like it's just something that they're trying to do to sort of like generate some headlines for it, because I think that they made a calculated risk in what they did, and I think that it sort of backfired. So now they're trying to, just sort of like be current and see if that helps at all. But I don't really think that it will.
I'm just reminding Will that we're on camera and he's got like all this junk in front of him, which usually when we do the podcast, it doesn't matter. We have all this stuff here.
Jeff has the same shit.
Well, Jeff can take care of Jeff. But I do agree with your point, Coltrane, that Playboy has not been relevant for the photos or the articles in a while. I just think that when Hef died, they felt like, okay, now we can finally do this, because we're like, this is probably going to push the old man over the edge, but let's hold off on this.
Don't you think to an extent, too, like, print mediums are already, like, dying?
Right.
All
True.
print mediums, right?
Yes.
So, dirty print medium, which was, like, the used to be, like, the place you could see these things. Like, that was the attraction there.
Right.
Now, you go see, like, worse versions of the same pictures you can see online in better resolution and all these other things, and have access to, like, an infinite number of better versions of this. So yeah, you've got to be basically going straight for the articles, straight for everything else that made it like a periodical, a magazine. But the reality is that's dead too. So Playboy's just, they're like Blockbuster. They're going to keep trying to like cling for dear life, and they're just going to fucking die. But I think the transgendered centerfold is interesting. It's an interesting move. I like the idea that it's like breaking barriers, but then it also enters into this really, I think, interesting conversation for me of, okay, if you got a magazine that's supposed to be based around like your sexuality, let's say largely male heterosexuality.
Yes.
To an extent, having this out there, do you not worry that might challenge certain people's notions of like, oh wow, I don't know how to feel looking at this picture, because she's a very pretty girl. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not taking anything away from her.
Just saw pictures, yeah.
But at the same time, there's just I know so many people where it's like you just have that in the back of your mind. You're like, but that's a guy, so if I'm attracted to that, am I gay?
Well, I think that's what starts the conversation.
This is a good conversation.
And the reason why we're having the conversation, not just because I was waiting for Coltrane to be with us, but because we also have our resident Bladtcast feminist, Mr. Will Sterling,
The man.
at Will Sterling _
Hey, what's up?
Give us your thoughts about, first of all, what you think about the model, because I think, look, this person, and I'm going to say it's a woman now, so she's very attractive.
Yeah.
I really like her balls, but what do you think of
What the
Her chest balls.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay.
No, but that's Christian Blatt who said that at Christian GMC. Will Sterling not attributed that quote.
Yeah.
What do you think about the photos, which we've looked at, which are out there, which
Yeah.
we don't need to roll in here in the
Sure.
Bladtcast. We'll let people find them. I don't want to get sued for using photos. Your thoughts?
I think she's attractive. I think it's great. I think Playboy sort of prides itself on doing these type of things. Like, there was a documentary that came out on Amazon. It was like the Playboy story, and it kind of went from inception to like the 90s. And it was fascinating. It was like sort of documentary, but also like drama recreations. And there's a lot of fascinating things, and I'm sure I know for a fact that a lot of shitty things have gone on in Playboy because of photographers and people who work at the company, and I'm sure there's a lot of sexism and rape culture and all these things perpetuated. But what they kind of pushed for themselves more than anything was that they were there to report on civil rights and do all these things for magazines that like magazines weren't doing at the time. So I think for them, they also see it as this opportunity to be like, look, this is like us being even more inclusive and maybe opening up the questions to like, I see pictures of this girl and I'm like, she's really pretty, but in no way am I like, this makes me question my sexuality. I'm like, she's pretty, and I'd look at naked pictures of her, and I'm like, oh, in the book, and I'd be like, great, you know what I mean? Like, but that it kind of stops there. And if anybody feels threatened by it because of that, then it's like you have other things that you need to work on.
The whole question mark of like, because I've heard this raised before, where it's basically like the conversation that I've had is it's like, okay, as a straight man, is there some sort of like bigoted thinking to be like, I'm not attracted to transsexuals, just like outright based on the fact that they were born a different gender, right? There's a real question there, because I think sexuality is an individual experience, right? So everybody's welcome to say they're not into a certain thing, and no one should have the right to be like, how dare you?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like obvious right from the get-go that that's a small-minded statement, because like we just saw a girl who is very attractive, yet I still in the back of my mind I'm like, I don't think I would try to have sex with her, because I'd be caught up in my own.
But then, of course,
whatever.
the question becomes, if you meet this person and you're just talking and you hit it off and that's what they look like, and you don't know that it's transgender, you might find yourself attracted to this person because, I mean, look, she's attractive. Although, Jason Blair says, transgender or not hot, which that's perfectly a matter of opinion.
All right.
Our friend Matt and KC says, a mouth is a mouth. God bless you, Matt and KC.
Wow.
I think that's very open-minded 2017 thinking, and I definitely appreciate that viewpoint. But yeah, I think it's difficult to say, because this is in the context of that this is a transgender model. So if you just think about looking at it objectively, like sure, it's look. I have certainly got some way worse notches on my belt than what this person looks like. I don't believe any of them were equipped like she is, but Maybe some of them were and hit it really well.
I don't know if you did you ever watch that show, My Name is Earl?
Sure,
You
I love
remember
that
the
show.
like Hispanic housekeeper from the place? That's who she looks like to me.
Oh.
A lot. Like
Oh, yeah.
similar.
Yeah, I know that actress.
Similar fit.
Oh, I know who you are. Now
yeah.
that... Oh, my. Coltrane, we bring you back in, not just because you're driving and listening along to this, but because there's more that we feel like you can weigh in on. What do you think about somebody, this isn't even about yourself, does looking at this and being attracted to this model, do you think that that should make someone question their own personal sexuality?
No, but I mean, I sort of think that Jeff kind of hit it like accurately, where it's like everyone's ideal of their own like sexuality is like their own thing. So it's like, do I think that should make someone question their sexuality? No. Do I like the only issue that I ever really like have with this is like if you go to a bar and you meet somebody and they don't tell you, I think that's fucked up. But I think it's more fucked up because they lied to you about it, and like that's sort of, you don't want to be surprised by something, I guess. So it's like if you meet someone and you think that she's a woman, then how would that make you question your sexuality? Like that's not really, I don't know, like it's really not really a thing. But I do sort of understand why people would be like freaked out about it, but it's like, it's not like you saw a guy and you were like, oh my God, now I'm really attracted to a guy and now I'm questioning my sexuality. It's like, she is a woman. She's presenting herself as a woman. So it's not like, so it really shouldn't like impact what you think about it. But I don't know. I mean, I also think that we're at a time when there's a lot more like sort of understanding about it. So it makes it a little different, and I think it makes it like more, people tend to be a little bit more open-minded about it, so it's not as black and white where it's like, oh my God, now what do I do? But I don't know, I don't think it should make anyone question anything, but you know, I guess that's because like I'm just sort of comfortable with who I am, so I hope everybody else is too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really, I don't know, like I don't really judge a whole lot of people on that stuff, so I don't know.
So that leads into my next question, which is, at what point do you feel like a transsexual woman needs to disclose that information? Like, if you're talking to her at a bar, does it need to be before there's any like sexual contact, like kissing I'm talking about, or does it need to be before basically the point where you tell someone if you had an STD?
I mean, it's kind of like somebody, this isn't a future time-space continuum story, but I was involved in a situation where something was not told to me.
It's true.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, appropriate time.
Let's tease that forward.
Yeah.
That'll be in a Bladtcast story in the month of November.
Virginity story.
Yeah.
We'll just say that.
We'll just say that.
So
Yeah,
the information
right.
was
I
given
guess
to me
you
way
should-
too late in the evening.
way too, like,
Yes.
way too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like at the bar, you know what I mean? Like if someone's like, "Hey, let's go home," and you're like, "Let's do this," I should tell you right now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Right.
I would think that is a point, but I can also, I feel like there's plenty of guys out there that like, just sticking on something Coltrane said, that not that I think he was going this way, but where you talk about like, that's a lie. At what point are they lying to you? If they identify as a girl and they're being like, I'm a girl, why? That's not a lie.
Right.
That's their truth.
Right.
Now, you know, objectively from this other standpoint and where he's coming from, I understand exactly what he's saying. So that's my question is, it's like, because you know that there are people out there that it's like, if they just talked to a transsexual girl and I never like even anything intimate, like maybe didn't even dance, right? And then at the end of the night, that transsexual girl was like, you know, just to let you know, I'm transsexual. I was born a different gender.
Yeah.
I could see people being enraged by that. Like, you've been lying to me. And
Right.
again, it's just like, no, they haven't. But
Right.
And
so
I
where's that
also
line?
see
Yeah, what point-
it's ridiculous for the expectation of, you know, hi, I'm Caitlyn, I'm transgender. I'm
Yeah.
using that name not because this is actually Caitlyn Jenner, but
Yeah.
I actually don't remember the name of the model. You know, I think you don't have to disclose that up front. But yeah, I think that there's a point where things ought to be revealed. Hey, everybody in the chat, when do you
Yeah.
think you should be told that the person that you're with has something important to tell you, whether it be I've got a bait and tackle downstairs, or nobody's ever
Twig and two berries.
twig and two berries, or nobody's ever, you know, been through here before, you know, any of that kind of important information. Let us know in the chat. Jason Blair, I never dated girls with tattoos. So
Oh.
he just doesn't like them, and it's relevant because he says you can't say someone's bigoted just because they rule out transgender people. You don't have to say that. They could be, but that also just might not be what they're into. So
course.
yes, it's
Doesn't make
not
it bigoted.
automatically that.
No.
Somebody who's bigoted towards transgendered people will not want to date transgendered people.
That's true.
It's kind of a square rhombus situation.
I don't believe that I'm a bigoted person. Not interested in dating transgender people. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely.
So people feel put up against a wall, and they're like, "Well, what are you trying to make me feel, or do, or say, or think, or whatever?" It's like
Nothing.
Nothing. You just do whatever you want to do.
Matt and KC, God bless you. He says before second base. So once you get to second base, that's the time.
Okay.
Hey, I'm transgender, or hey, I'm a
I
virgin.
mean, that seems like that seems like a pretty reasonable position to take, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, just
I
because
agree,
you're touching
Coltrane.
fake boobs, really? Like, I mean, who here has touched fake boobs?
Me.
My hand. Oh wait, all
Yep.
three of our hands
All
are up.
three of our
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah.
What
Well,
about
you
Coltrane?
we're on video.
you banged a stripper, so obviously you touched
yeah.
fake boobs. Yeah.
I've touched more than one pair of fake boobs.
I thought you were going to say I've touched
Actually,
more than
I
one.
dated a
I
girl
only
who was in
touched one. I
Playboy.
refuse to touch the other one.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Stop down. Say that again.
I dated a girl who was in Playboy back when she was like 18, and
you
look her up, Natasha Tamika.
Wait,
did
Natasha?
another-
No, not this Natasha.
Oh,
Different
Natasha
Natasha.
You
Tamika.
dated two Natashas?
Yeah.
It's like every time I'm on a
And I
dating
dated
app
a
and a Nicole
Sasha.
pops up, I go, nope.
But the other Natasha went by Nat. So
Oh,
yeah.
and
What
this
is it?
one goes by
Samika?
Tasha, right?
Yeah,
Or to some-
Natasha or
Tosh.
Tasha.
How do you
I
spell
just call
it?
her
Tosh.
Tosh.
Do
'cause
you
it's
call her
easy.
Tosh 2.0?
Natasha Tamika, Tameka.
So anyway, your point about fake boobs, though.
But my point about fake boobs is like, okay, I'm just saying, like, touching fake boobs seems like even if I knew you were a transgendered like woman, I would touch your boobs just for the bit. Be like, oh, let's see how they feel. Like, let's see
Right.
how that job went.
Obviously you would ask first and say, hey, do you mind if I see what's going on? Because I want to, maybe you want to get a pair for yourself. Oh, yes. Congratulations to Jeff DeRay on Natasha. What's her name?
Tamika.
Tamika.
She's
make
like
sure you
6 feet tall, big girl.
look at you. How'd you not get lost in there? Oh, yikes.
Wow.
Anyway, Coltrane, we've talked about fake boobs at great length on the Bladtcast over the years. But on the occasion of our half a D, I think we ought to really revisit the topic. Do you have a preference? Real boobs, fake boobs? Are you indifferent?
I mean, I like real boobs better, but I mean, I'm not gonna like turn a girl down because she's got fake boobs, you know?
That is the correct answer. Thank you. Yes, I certainly prefer. Obviously, now I'm completely off the market. Sorry, ladies.
Hey.
I'm not looking for anything. But when I wasn't, I wasn't like, all right, well, I'm out of this situation because these are not real. I am not gonna keep this going. I cannot believe she lied to me. But it does sort of continue on that conversation. They don't need to disclose that they have fake boobs, but at some point, depending on the size that they've gone with, you might not know right away.
That's true.
If they're triple G's, you're probably like, those aren't real. But if they are, look out.
See, like, to me, I'll take a pair of fake boobs over certain pairs of natural boobs, like
Small?
the oblong nipples,
Double
rail
A's?
hang gliders, women over
gliders.
Hang gliders.
that kind of stuff. I'll take fakes over those.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay.
Will,
Yeah.
fake boobs, this had to be recent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple months ago.
Did you meet this woman, and just go like, okay, those are fake, or did you?
I didn't really know until
You were right in there. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. Is
Yeah.
you don't always. I mean, look, there
Right.
are times you definitely know.
Right.
But sometimes you don't. And you did not feel like this person was lying to you by not saying.
Disclosing about their fake boobs.
Yeah.
No.
Hi, I'm Cindy, and I
Right.
have fake tits.
Right. I mean, I'd be like,
Somebody isolate that audio. I'm
Right.
going to use it every episode. That should be the little thing at
That's
the
the
end.
intro.
The little thing at the end.
Bladtcast. Hi, I'm Cindy, and I have fake tits.
That should be the little thing at the end of this episode, don't you think? Well, there'll probably be something else.
Halfway to D, halfway to fake double Ds.
Yeah.
Jason Blair, you'll know as soon as she lays on her back. My man. If they stay upwards, they aren't real. That's true. Yeah, they just continue to face Mecca.
Unless she's in her early 20s, then they still stand up.
That's true.
Yeah, see, you know what? That's a really important point, Coltrane, and I'm so glad you brought that up because it's been a while since we visited the topic of 20-something breasts, and yeah, they do tend to stand up better.
They're nice so far.
Will, what do you think about breasts in their 20s?
They're great.
Yeah, I feel like you've visited with some of those recently, and I'm not talking about in the last 24 hours. I'm talking about more in general.
I visited with Will's breasts in the last 24 hours.
Well, and when we talk about Halloween, we will see
right
that. Will did not put the tape over the nipples. He was just showing.
I was like, let it all hang out.
Let it all hang out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which was great for the theme of your costume, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yes.
But I think that Coltrane, you're so wise. That's the kind of knowledge that we don't get when you're not driving while you talk to all of us on the Bladtcast. And Matt and KC agrees with Jason that he's correct about when they're fake. Well, I think that this has been a very fun conversation, but now it would be time. Whoa, go ahead.
You also know because they can't lay on their stomach without a pillow underneath them.
That's a thing.
Mm-hmm. It's too painful.
Will, I need to ask, why is she laying on her stomach?
That's what she told me when she was on her stomach.
Oh, I thought that...
Sex, Christian. Sex
yeah,
time.
but on
That's
her
what she told
stomach.
me when she was on her stomach,
She's
and I was
laying
inserted in her vagina.
Thank you, Jeff, for giving me the information that I want.
I just
If
said
nothing
sex.
else, we want to share this with the Bladtcast Nation. Look, you don't love me. You just love my doggy style. That's what I was looking for. Somebody to
Name of
say
your
that.
sex tape, Kung Fu.
Jeff's kicking cans all over the place.
Kicking the can down. We can't keep kicking the can down the road, guys.
We've been kicking Bladtcast 250 down the road for a while.
Long time.
It's a long time, and we're here. I can't believe it.
Have to
Well, before I bring it down to the conversation I was going to get into, Coltrane, think back to the earliest days of the Bladtcast. Did you only do it because you were afraid that I would want to fire you if you didn't hang around to talk to us? I'm going to ask Will the same question. That's not just for you.
I didn't feel that.
No, I genuinely like you guys, so it was fine. Like, hanging around to, like, do the show was fine.
Yeah, I thought so.
Just fine.
It was just fine, but no, it was fine.
I had a good time doing it. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I would have just, like, made an excuse as to why I had to leave if I didn't want to stay.
Like Bladtcast?
So
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I like you guys.
Well, and we are hashtag Team Coltrane. Bladtcast did not enjoy doing it, but he would just like leave the studio, and then I'm like, oh, I need something from him, but I'll have to wait.
Yep.
And then Will, you enjoyed doing the podcast because the podcasting seemed relatively new back in. Well, wasn't that new in 2013, but it's still,
when it started?
now it's like everybody has like podcasts that they listen to.
I mean, yeah.
Also, everybody has a podcast except Jeff. The EO cast.
It's in the works.
We do one episode every 10 years.
Oh, and you just haven't done the first one yet. I mean, I thought it was fun. But Jeff, you came into a new situation where you were replacing someone, and you also had another job to get to. You've probably felt pressure to, like, I have to do the Bladtcast as part of my job.
It was never, I mean, basically it was one of those things where when I took over the job, yes, it was very much made out as like one of my responsibilities,
Yeah.
but it wasn't made out as like and then you got to worry about doing this fucking podcast
I'm
thing.
surprised that Bladtcast didn't sell it to you like
Well,
that.
he wasn't thrilled about it. He was just like, oh yeah, and then you'll have to stay for this thing. I always
Right.
just try to leave
But-
by this time. You just tell them that you have to go by
Yeah.
this point. And I was like, okay.
And
He always hated us.
and we were happy. He still hates us.
Yeah.
He had no interest in participating in the podcast because it was like David would only either want to like make jokes that made Coltrane extremely like uncomfortable,
Very true.
or he wanted to just like completely check out, finish his like post-show work, because that's the shitty part of being like the tech op is you
Yeah.
always have so much shit to do after
Yeah.
the show's done.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody else is like, all right, we're gonna go have fun and do other things. You're like, but I'm gonna be here for another hour. Can you guys like wait?
Yeah.
And by the way, for those of you that have jumped ahead to Bladtcast 250 to watch it live, there's a great story that we tell on Bladtcast 249 about visiting with Liev for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, we made him cry, but not in the good way.
Yeah.
Actually, it was in a good way, but
much
not
teeth.
not in the
Yeah.
dirty way. Too much teeth. Will Sterling. But Jason Blair says, did Christian have the pull to fire people at Westwood One? I was not the one to do firing, but if it was time for someone to be let go, I definitely steered it in that direction.
Who had the conversation with the Swami?
I was in the room,
Oh.
but Max Krasny from Westwood One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that like Bart by the time I came?
No, Max was basically West Coast Bart is the best way to explain who he was.
Coast Bart.
Hey dudes, yeah, we gotta let the Swami go, okay, buddy? Jeff had never met this person, but actually I think Max was still there when you worked, but you didn't go across the street. Do you think that, what do you remember about that situation, Coltrane, the Swami?
I mean, listen, he was a nice enough guy. He was just kind of incompetent, but he was like that guy that, like, he knew that, like, he made a mistake, and he made a pretty big mistake, and I kept trying to, like, get him to, like, kind of acknowledge it, and he kind of wouldn't, and so it was just like, okay, bud, whatever, and so, like, for a while you just sort of think, okay, it's going to take him a little bit of time to sort of, like, get in the groove, but then you just sort of realize, nah, he's not really that good at this.
Yeah.
He's what one might call a little incompetent when it comes to this sort of a thing.
See
So
what actors all the time.
it didn't really work out so well for him.
Was he just like slow thinking
So
or slow
I'll
moving?
use some slow thinking, slow moving. Yes, and he also like didn't play well with Dennis on the air. Like he was like he didn't want to embarrass himself by saying something. So it was bad. I knew we were in for trouble when his resume had 3 smiley faces at the bottom. I wish that was a joke, but it's not.
Didn't he delete an entire show, or he lost an
Yeah,
entire
so
show?
there's a couple.
Yeah,
There's a couple instances. So there was a pre-taped show where we would pre-tape the Dennis Miller show we're talking about. I think most people know, but just in case they don't, the nationally syndicated Westwood One Dennis Miller show. He was an interim board op between Sabes and Liev, and he did not last very long because he was indeed not good at his job. And he would record pre-tape shows, and the first time he did it, he didn't record my mic, and Dennis talked to me, so he had to edit in a way where it didn't make any sense what Dennis was talking about because he just took out the parts where he's like, what do you think, Christian? And then Dennis just he jumped around topics. So I was like, all right, well, I'll talk to him about that. And then we pre-recorded a show that he lost.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a great show. I mean, it was an interview with that musician who did the song The Streak. I forget that guy's name, and I'll have to look it up.
We had some great guests on that show.
We sure did.
those
That's
are
why
good
I
days.
wasn't that upset about it. I almost had it. Anyway, and so he lost that show, and, it was one of those things that the publicist was like, can you send me audio to it? I was like, sure thing, and just never followed
Gone.
up.
Just gone.
And so there was that, but then on a pre-taped show, there was a curse in it, and Ray Stevens was the musician. I'm using air quotes for those watching on YouTube. The musician, and he lost the interview. I'm sorry, Dennis Miller fans, who maybe are learning for the first time that Dennis talking to Ray Stevens is something they never got to hear. I heard it, and that's all that really matters.
It's like the lost Doctor Who episodes. It's like in a box somewhere in like South Africa, like a reel of it.
Yeah, we'll find it. Yeah, we said
in one of those crates along with the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
That giant
Yeah,
warehouse.
and by the way, listening to that segment will melt your face, especially if you're a Nazi. But so he edited us. So he on. Not to get too technical / boring, but if you look at the program that I guess it was Wave Lab at that point, you could look and see where he marked that he was going to take the swear out, but then he didn't take it out, and it went on the air on a taped show.
Right.
So like, if it sneaks out over the air on a live show, which did happen once or twice, unfortunately, it's a live show. Okay, that sucks, but so that was like the last straw where they had to fire him, and I did not have to fire him, but I was the witness in the room.
I like to imagine that you're just standing in the back room in the corner with your arms folded.
I wish that I was, but no. Can I get a witness? Yes, it was me, and I sat there, and it was really uncomfortable, and I wasn't even firing him.
Did he cry?
He didn't in the room. Afterwards, probably.
Oh.
Let me just put it this way: his resume had a sad face on it after the fact.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Supposedly he's doing all right. Are you still Facebook friends with him, Will?
I think we're Twitter followers.
Okay. He unfriended me on Facebook, but I'll always appreciate how he got me into Club 33 at Disneyland.
Oh yeah.
So thank you.
He also got
Swami.
me to the Magic Castle.
Yeah. So
Let me see if we're still pals.
see if you're still pals. And of course, Jeff never knew him, but Jason Blair mentioned that it was noticeable to listeners on the show that the new guy wasn't as good as Sabes.
Yeah, we're still friends. Me and
the
the Swami still friends.
You and the Swami still tight.
Still Facebook friends.
By the way, Facebook reminded me
good.
that 7 years ago today was the day that the actual Swami was the guest in the studio.
Oh.
The Journey Home.
Journey Home is a book about some bullshit. I travel the earth and do a bunch of stupid fucking shit.
And it's available on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Amazon
And
also.
most bookstores and Amazon also.
And by the way, Matt and KC, back to the point about how I was able to fire people at Westwood One. The only person who had more clout at Westwood One than me, Zach Sang.
Hey!
Not the gang.
Zach Sang.
Just Zach Sang.
I remember one time it was after you guys had left, and I was doing one of the basically rerun shows during that like month of
Sure.
rerun shows. So I was sitting there.
Yeah, thanks for working during that, by the way.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I was sitting there like working on one of the shows, getting it ready to be able to like send it out over to New York, because that was like the goal. I wanted to get these done early because I could send them to New York and not have to be there for the show if I got them done by a certain time.
Yeah, of course.
And so I'm sitting there working in the studio. We're supposed to have completely to ourselves for like an hour plus after the fact of the show. And they all go in and start like having a meeting in the other room and are like, can you leave? And I was like, well, first of all, I'm in a different room than you. Second of all, you don't have the right to be in the studio. It's still our time.
Right.
And I'm doing work for a show.
Yeah.
Versus you guys just having a bullshit meeting you could do anywhere.
Yeah.
A
Like,
show that
fuck
people
you.
actually listen to, not Zach Sang and the gang!
Still on?
Probably. Why don't you look him up
gonna
and
Google this.
we'll find out if Zach Sang is around. Farad Muhammad with a great comment. How about we focus it on ribs? And that's absolutely true. I definitely agree. We should really talk more about ribs. By the way, Coltrane, how's the driving right now? Is everything, is it smooth sailing? Is there traffic? Or you're doing all right because you're on the back roads?
I mean, I'm doing all right. It's been raining a whole lot here, so it's really wet out here, but it's not like LA, but people can actually drive in the rain out here, so it's still good.
You know what? It is a good point. I might be hard on Massachusetts drivers, but people do know how to drive in the rain in a lot of other places in the country.
It's
this
not
is
even
not one of them.
necessarily the drivers as much as the roads that are the problem in Massachusetts, because like Boston itself, the streets are literally former cow paths. That's why they don't make any sense, because it used to just be the way cows walked through the city.
Still going, the show.
Zach Sang and
called
the
the
gang
Zach
still
Sang
going.
Show.
It's just so the gang is no more.
The gang has
The gang right
disbanded.
now is these three people, I assume. Two
well,
men and a lady.
That gang is a face for radio. Yeah, I fucking said it. What are
Still
you gonna
at
do about it,
Westwood
Zach
One.
Sang? Come on, come at me, motherfucker.
Zach Sang's one of those guys like that dude that I like cornered after he flipped me off.
Also mentioned, I think, in a future time
episode.
space
Oh, yeah.
continuum.
So in the
but
future, you'll hear this great
you'll
story.
hear this great story.
But Zach Sang's like one of those guys that I would love to just give one of those reality checks. Like, I realize that you feel famous and important and special, but I have 100 pounds on you and I could kill you, like literally kill you right now. And you have nothing you could do to stop that from happening. Like,
Yeah.
just remember in life, no matter like how important and rich you are, don't be a douchebag to somebody that could actually murder you right then and there.
right then and there.
Death is imminent.
Jason Blair adds that people in Boston driving in the sun equals people in LA driving in the rain. Coltrane, your thoughts on that comment?
I'm sorry, I actually had to. There was someone who was just about to blow through a yield sign as I was listening to you, so I had to flip them off. I didn't actually hear what you said.
I think
So
that's our answer.
that kind of answers the question, but for your sake, I will let you know. Jason Blair says people in Boston driving in the sun equals people in LA driving in the rain. The person blowing through the yield sign seems to make it fairly accurate that he's onto something with that.
In fairness, but there are two things that I would say with that. One, I was old. Second of all, I did not stop because I was completely aware of the situation. So I slickly maneuvered around the whole thing, and I am A-okay, and I managed to flip them off as well. So this is what I'm talking about. I, as a Boston driver, know exactly what I'm doing, so I can make moves and be okay, even though like other people are, less okay. So it's all about that confidence that you have in your ability to drive.
It's like
Swagger.
It's like in California, somebody like comes to like cut you off on the highway, and everybody stops in the entire fucking lane for like 3 miles. In Boston, that person comes to like swerve in, and everyone's like, "Ha, suck a dick," and they just like close it off, and then that person still finds a way to like force themselves through, and you're all just like, "That's driving in Boston."
Great.
Or
No traffic.
in keeping with the theme of the episode, suck half a D.
Suck half a D.
Suck half a dick.
Yeah.
Half a dick. Is that like Hedwig and the Angry Inch style? Or?
Man, I don't get the fascination with that. I saw that movie and I was just like, oh, this is not good. And
know
then
what
went
it's
on
about.
Broadway and it like took the world by storm. But it's Broadway and it's probably just not for me.
Is it a guy named Hedwig who has an inch-long penis?
It's so
You pretty
Hedwig and
much
the
nailed
Angry.
it,
It's
yeah.
like a East German, like during the before the fall of the Berlin Wall,
Yeah.
and basically there's a guy who had. That was going to be turned into a woman, but they left like an inch of his dick. So he basically like had most of his dick chopped off and
Wow.
has this angry inch and becomes this like semi-tranny lead singer of this band, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Okay.
And it started off as like a Broadway play, and then they brought the person who originally played Hedwig
And then they made
in
it
to
a
play the
movie, and then they made it a Broadway
Yeah.
show again with Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah,
Harris,
which was like worse than the original one. But
Yeah.
it was.
You
We
pretty
studied
much-
it in a
you
class.
summarized
It's
it, yeah.
interesting, but I completely agree with you in the sense that like if you it's one of those movies that unless you know you're getting into something like that, you're just gonna be like, what the fuck? It was
Like
like
Rocky
when I
Horror
watched
Picture Show?
Donnie Darko in 8th grade and just had no idea what the fuck was going on.
You know,
I didn't like it the first time I saw it.
talking about movies that people watched when they were younger, I wanted to bring this up in the previous episode of Bladtcast, but forgot. Jeff, you, I believe, literally shit yourself when you saw Pennywise the Clown in the TV version of it. So
Close.
when you and Will went to go see the new version, did you shit yourself?
No, and here's the thing, like
Because
when
I'm a man now.
Yeah, because I have a diaper
you're
and it's
a
not
man.
shitting yourself when it's on purpose. No, it was less shitting myself. It was I was terrified to go to the bathroom because I was afraid he's gonna reach up through the toilet and pull me in.
Oh, yeah, it was
But that was
active.
also a combo from Look Who's Talking because they had that like Mr. Toilet scary thing where it was like I want to eat your pee-pees and your poo-poos, and like I combined that with like Pennywise being in the toilet, and I was just like, toilets are bad news, okay? I'm gonna go pee and poop in the backyard like my mommy taught me to. I don't know
you
why I'm
Trump
Trump right
all
now.
of a sudden?
I don't know.
'Cause
I don't know what that
baby
was.
Trump shitting in the backyard.
about pooping more than I do, okay? I take the best poops.
I take
They're really phenomenal poops.
in
Yeah.
my solid gold toilet.
There have been some comments in the chat about both
My
Chimp
poops float too, okay? You'll float down here.
Chimp Doctor. Oh, so wait, Trump as Pennywise.
Yeah.
Why is
You'll
what-
float
Georgie,
too.
excuse me, Georgie. Your arm. I don't like your arm, okay? You don't need that arm. More people deserve this arm than you, okay?
why has Funny or Die, when you consider the people behind Funny or Die, why have they not done that video
Let's
where
do it. I'll
Trump
do it.
down in the let's do it. By the way, we still need to do we have a project where we want to do something with a piece of music by Mr. Jason Blair in the chat.
Yes.
And we need to revisit that now that your life is settling down
It's
and
calming down a
mine's
little bit.
about to get completely unsettled.
Yep.
With baby girl Blatt, but that's all right. I'll make time. I'll make time for the cast. Anyway, in the chat, there have been a couple of comments where people are wondering about Chimp Doctor and Slappy and the Commandant. There was one thing that Dennis always said, that he never wanted to see Chimp Doctor at work.
Okay.
So I feel like I need to go down here. I just don't think people should have seen that. And of course, Slappy was just that was it. It was a bad Krusty the Clown, I think. Which is another great. Where's that Simpsons episode where Krusty the Clown is in the? Come on.
What about Woodsy Moncton, the world's procrastinative survivalist?
I'm coming.
I saw a great interview where Dave Chappelle referred to himself as the crusty clown of like the small town in Ohio that he lives in.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome.
So many happy memories from the Dennis Miller Show, which has been gone for 2.5 years now. But
Shit.
earlier this year on the Bladtcast, I made a point to celebrate 10 years, even though it was only on for 8 years. You know, we do fun things on the Bladtcast. But, hey, let's bring it down by talking about a serious conversation. And I want to know, Coltrane, you first, your thoughts as we hear, we'll just start specifically with allegations against Harvey Weinstein. So as we hear that, I want to know what you think, and then there's obviously a lot more that we've gotten since then, but I'm interested in your take on that.
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's like, sadly you're not surprised by it. I mean, when you find out like some of the people that were involved, you're like, wow, that's crazy. But it's just, you're not surprised by it. It's like, I'm never surprised when I hear any of this stuff. The fact that it's like kind of blown up as much as it has is, I mean, it's, in one sense, it's a good thing, obviously, because, you know, no one deserves to be treated that way. It's just, I'm surprised that it took so long to get to this point. So that, I mean, that's sort of that's sort of what I think about it. But it's also like, sadly, like I knew, I was friends with a girl who was an actress, and we had conversations sometimes about some of the stuff that went on, and I was just like, wow, that's really, like, I hate that you have to go through with that. And it was like almost that she was resigned to it, and it was also sad that she was resigned to it. But then it's just, I don't know, like, so the whole thing, it's like that system just sucks, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm surprised that it blew up as fast and as big as it did, but, you know, it's something like, you know, like, you hear allegations all the time. Like, I hadn't heard them specifically about him, but I definitely have heard about, like, you know, allegations about people in Hollywood, so I wasn't really surprised by it.
Yeah, Jeff, your thoughts?
Well, first question was for all you guys. Have you guys heard the allegations against Louis C.K.?
I have
briefly, yeah.
heard that now, and I'd heard rumblings about it before. But let's talk about Harvey first. Let's
Yeah.
just focus on that. Can we focus it on Harvey?
Well, the reason I brought it up was only
Sure.
to say that it's like my unfortunate perspective on these things is always like kind of, yeah, no shit. Like, I'm very much aware of the fact that, like, rich and powerful people are disgusting, awful human beings that
Yeah.
do disgusting, awful things to other people because they feel they have the power. Like, I didn't even really watch it, but just, like, I watched the very beginning of that Phil Spector movie last night on HBO before I fell asleep. And
The
just,
Pacino one?
Yeah. And just the idea that Phil Spector was like this rich, famous, important musician, right? But it's basically he got so old and weird and creepy that he had to put guns in women's mouths to get them to go home with him so that he could sleep with them. And I just feel like with all this like weird, powerful celebrity and money mixture, that you get these really fucked up situations where you have like these unfortunate just not really realizing what they're getting themselves into girls that are like, oh, you're famous, that's interesting, like that's a story. I don't think all these other awful things are going on. Those are just stories. And then you put yourselves into these situations, and it's almost like, I mean, everybody's been in a situation where you don't say no to something that you want to say no to because you're just feeling like, what the fuck's happening here? So I'm like, look at the accusations by Corey Feldman and Corey Haim from years ago. Like,
Yeah.
you think that misogyny is the worst thing that's happening in Hollywood? I doubt it. There's probably some really awful, fucked up, pedophilic, the guy from Beetlejuice, shit going on every day.
Well,
But I'm just saying.
I have to explain that because the guy Jeff Jones, who's in Beetlejuice and also was the bad guy in Howard the Duck, he's the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's a fairly well-known, at least at the time it happened, that he had some allegations, and I don't know that he served time, but there were some pretty serious allegations to that guy. So when you say the guy from Beetlejuice, I need to specify which guy that is.
Yes, okay.
And it's the creepy guy who unfortunately does look like he'd be a child molester.
Wasn't he in My Parents Saved the World or whatever that movie was?
Mom and Dad Save the
Yeah.
World, yeah, with I believe our friend John Lovitz. Hello. But yeah, and I agree. I mean, there's that. Look, the Harvey Weinstein stuff is terrible. I'm not saying that, and you don't want to compare different kinds of terrible and saying something is like less terrible because this is worse. But even before I was a parent, the idea of people who prey on children, especially, you know, in Hollywood, it seems so easy and it's so rampant. And I'm not even going to hint about the person who Charlie Monkton is not what I was going to say. Yikes. Anyway, just going to blow past what I just said. Anyway, it's all very terrible, and I don't like to hear about it, and because it's true, and you know it's true, and that's the thing. This is all terrible, you know?
Have you been watching any of the Menendez show
I have
on
not
NBC?
watched that.
It's
Is it
really
good?
good. It's
Yeah.
very well done. And just, sorry to keep belaboring different points, but in that show, there's the whole thing where the judge is basically like refusing to hear testimony because it's just too much for him. It's like
Right.
child abuse and sexual abuse of children and all this stuff. And he's just like, nope, you're beating a dead horse. When it's just like, we all have this propensity to not want to hear about it because it just makes us so uncomfortable and so upset that to an extent, that's our complicity. Like, that's why this shit is happening everywhere around us, because we don't want to know about it. You hear a story like that, and your first reaction is like, I really hope that's not true. And you feel like that's a good reaction because you're like, well, I hope that didn't happen to that girl. But let's be honest, like, half that reaction is, I hope that's not true because I don't want to have to deal with my feelings of, oh, somebody I thought could be a good person is really a monster.
Right, and I mean, sort of, if you look at the high-profile things like Michael Jackson, there are a lot of people that are just like, I don't want to hear that.
Right.
I don't want to believe that. And, I mean, he sure paid a lot of money. That's all I'm going to say. And
Cosby?
Listen, Jeffrey, I was just about to say, don't bring me into this conversation, you see, because it wasn't something that I planned to do. It just sort of, we were going out for some drinks, and Theo and Rudy, and
That
Yeah.
was his testimony. He
that
just
was his
started going,
testimony. Yeah, Camille
my
handles it.
wife, come here. You don't know.
But look, that's the point. Beloved TV dad, and you hear that.
Ruined my
and-
childhood.
Yeah, and there you just hear these
listen to
terrible
his
things
stand-up
about
anymore.
people, and the Harvey Weinstein allegations are sadly not difficult to believe because one, he's a producer. Two, you've always heard he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Just trying to get people to vote for him for his shitty movies for Oscars. Yeah, that's right, Shakespeare in Love. And movies that shouldn't have win because it's like, oh my God, it's Harvey. I'm
Right.
afraid of him. And so you take it to another level. No, yeah, these are things that you're like, I wish it was difficult to believe, but it's not. And it's terrible. And you hear about it, and at some point, I guess you get anesthetized to it. It's like when you talk about mass shootings and things like that. You're like, it's another one, and you just can't react the same way every time you hear it.
Right.
I guess the positive thing, and there are plenty of people who have decided that they take this as an opportunity to belittle what people have actually been through, but the Harvey Weinstein definitely opened the floodgates for a lot of people, just sometimes telling their story or just putting, a little hashtag Me Too and just saying that it happened to me. No, I don't want to talk about it, but I just want you to know it happened. And you're just like, man, it's like everybody, just people doing it on Facebook. I'm like, actual people in my personal life, would have had no idea, but I know because men can be terrible. Sure.
It's kind of like, sorry, I was just going to say, it's kind of like child molestation. Like, anytime shit like that came out, like when I was working Jerry Sandusky, people I worked with that were just like, yeah, that happened to me when I was a kid. And it's just like people you don't talk about it more. You don't talk about it like beyond these things. But there's just like, there's a lot of stuff that people don't want to talk about that happens to them, be it trauma or whatever else. And it's just like, we're all going through a lot. Like we've all faced a lot of really awful things that none of us want to talk about because we feel like that's the easiest way to like take its power away.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're learning is like a big lie that we've told ourselves, that there's a lot of power in admitting these awful things that have happened, because then you have camaraderie, you have a sense of like, oh, I'm not this like awful weird individual that this one person that had this thing happen to him. Like, everybody has these kinds of shitty experiences, and we can all like listen to each other and commiserate and like continue to grow as people. Like, everybody that was negatively affected by Harvey Weinstein now has an amazing but unfortunate opportunity to like connect with one another and to grow like a better, more powerful, like useful community. It's just a matter of like, are we gonna like face these things head on? Are we gonna say like, shit, awful stuff happened, it was bad, we can't change the past, but now we can go forward and shine a light on a positive future? Because if it now just becomes any time that something happens, it's just like, another Weinstein, you're just another piece of shit male misogynist, or you're just another this, then it's going to turn into the backfire of like, yeah, well, women's sexualized too, and I'm just an objectified male. And that's not going to get us anywhere.
Right, I agree. Will, I did want to let you were about to make a point. When,
Oh, it's, I mean, a lot of
Jeff
people are like, well,
filibustered
why
you.
did these people wait for so long? And a lot of these actresses who are high-profile actresses like wait this long and do all this kind of stuff. And then society's really good about continuing to turn blame back around on women. Like we're so good at that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Well, and let me just interject for a second. I think a lot of people waited so long because they were never going to tell the story.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
they
what was
were
gonna be my
not
point.
going to talk about
Right.
it, and now it's like, okay, it might be helpful if I
Right.
mention, you know what, this
Right.
happened to me too.
But
yeah.
but so they're in such a place where they're so scared, or could ruin their career, or it could just like tarnish all this stuff, and they're just like, you feel so afraid that you're sort of locked in this position where like now that everybody can come out with these stories, like it's really empowering. But the fact that people find a way to still shift blame back around on like victims is just like tremendous to me, because it's like what you're saying. It's like it makes them so uncomfortable, and they like refuse to believe that it's like an actual problem worldwide where this happens fucking all the time. They're like, well, I mean, it's the same notion where it's like, well, why you guess you shouldn't have gotten that drunk, or I guess you shouldn't have worn that outfit, or I get, you know what I mean? Like you're sort of
Right.
asking for it, and it's like, no, she can be fucking naked, and a no still means no. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. But I mean, this isn't even getting to that point. This is like, oh, I get a meeting with this high-powered producer. Of
Yeah,
course,
I'm
I
just
want to
talking
go to
about
that.
the way that people
But-
sort of look at it.
Yeah, the way that people look at it, and look, it's not unique to this industry that we're
Right.
talking about. It happens all over the place, just
Right.
on smaller levels, and I think that's why it is good that people are talking about it. Be like, yeah, look, it is a problem. We're aware of it, and I guess the Harvey Weinstein thing, some people knew about it, and his assistant set up these meetings, or
Yeah.
allegedly. Let's always say stuff like that.
Right.
But you know, someone coordinated. Yeah, Harvey's going to be in this room, and you go to the rep of this actress and say, yeah, this is where they should meet him. And it's like, well, what did you think that they're setting up?
Right.
You know, did they think that your hot young starlet or wannabe starlet was going to be so smitten with Harvey that they were going to be so excited and fall in love with him?
So handsome and charming.
Yeah, and this is something that Howard Stern has harped on as he's talked about this issue. The idea that Harvey Weinstein knows that he looks like Harvey Weinstein, opens the door in a bathrobe, and he wanted women to watch him shower. And it's just like, you know that you're a disgusting pig physically. Like, why would anyone want to
No one wants to watch you
well,
fucking
no one
shower.
fucking... And that's in general. Like, I never understood... You know, I'm from an older generation. I don't understand the concept of sending women dick pics. No one wants to look at that.
Yeah.
But also, my dick isn't as handsome as either of yours, I'm assuming.
You don't know that.
It's also it's the weird part of sexuality where it's no longer sexual. It's like power, right? It's that like he's it's the same thing with like the Louis C.K. accusations where it's like he's not even touching these women. He just literally masturbates to their horrified and shocked faces of him trapping them in a room and vigorously masturbating in front of them.
Yeah.
Like
That's what Louis C.K. is accused of?
he's like female comedians or something. He'll be like backstage at a show, and he'll basically like go in, stand at the door, and now have blocked you in, and just like masturbate to the girl's horrified face.
What the
Like
fuck?
that's what gets him off.
Yeah, at least there.
That's the accusation. I've never witnessed anything
There's a
like this,
beloved sports figure who the allegation is that he would never cheat on his wife, so he would actually get. I think it was usually prostitutes up to the room, and he'd have them he'd be in another corner of the room, and that's what he would do. So some people are just into that.
Who was that?
Kind of. I'm not saying it.
Why not?
Because it's a more of a vague allegation that's never really been made.
Do you know
But
this person personally?
No, but I will say it some other time because I don't want to. I don't need the backlash. You know, this day and age, like it's not really publicly. You know, it's not. It's like the Bill Cosby thing I had heard about forever ago.
Right,
There was
yeah.
no problem with people talking about that. And it's crazy that it really caught on because Hannibal Buress was making jokes about it.
Yeah.
And then also within the same week, whoever ran the Bill Cosby Twitter was like, hey, let's do a fun meme for Cosby. And then they all were like, yeah, I'm a rapist. You know, it was just like a picture of him with like pudding pops or whatever.
Bobcat Goldthwait's been making jokes about Cosby being a rapist since the 80s.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how, like 15 years ago I heard a story that was fairly verifiable. So it's terrible. And look, Matt and Casey points out that Terry Crews, who is a very funny actor, he's on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
He's from Idiocracy. He was on Everybody Hates Chris. I sat next to him on a plane once. Name drop!
Oh. Hey,
He
my friend
has...
Bobby De Niro says it's not polite to name drop.
I love that. That's a Robert Wool kind of thing to say.
My friend Bobby De Niro says it's not polite to name drop.
But he has allegations of sexual harassment, and look, yeah, there
Terry
are
Crews?
there are men who have sexual harassment by men or by women. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just think that this is the more common thing that people run into.
Yeah, 'cause
and
he posted about him being sexually harassed.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's not an allegation against
Right.
him. Thank you for clarifying that. And Coltrane, I feel like that's an existing problem that it's easy enough to joke around about, like, oh, I wish if I had a hot boss, I wish she harassed me. But obviously, that's also a problem too. I don't think it's as widespread, but it is something that people bring up. And before I go to Coltrane, Jeff, did you encounter something like that?
I have been on numerous occasions sexually harassed by female bosses. And gay. I am the old senior chief of engineering for Premier.
At nowhere.
Yeah.
At no place
At no
that
place
you work. Yeah.
that I used to not work
Right.
was a very openly gay man who very openly and blatantly sexually harassed me. But it was like in an I kind of I don't mean to say that, but it was like I encouraged it in the sense that I just treated it like a big joke. But the reality that everyone was aware of was that this was sexual harassment. And I've worked for like multiple. It was mostly like the older women, female hosts when I was working in radio, and they would make a lot of inappropriate comments, and they would like constantly be talking about me and like physically and stuff, and like just a lot of like older women that I've worked with and different things, they'll make these comments and they'll like sexualize young men, and it's just so easily dismissed because like one is a young man, you hear those things and you've been told by society, it's like, oh, just be flattered. They're talking about how great you are. And
I never heard anything like that. Anyway, continue.
What are you talking about? I sent you inappropriate texts all the time.
Yeah, but I want those.
But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I've definitely felt like I've been on the other end, and by no means did I say or do anything about it. I was uncomfortable. Like I used to do like not voice acting, but I did like voice acting type classes because that was something I had wanted to do, and I literally dropped out of that whole thing because my coach was just sexually harassing me all the time. Like would try to like make me kiss her, would like constantly like kiss my face and all this shit. She's on Rick and Morty and all these things. Like she's a like
Allegedly on
hardworking-
Rick and Morty.
She was Mr. Pancake or Miss Pancakes on Rick and Morty and stuff.
Now-
She does like a lot
Jeff
of
DeRay
voice
alleging
acting
that.
work.
I'm just trying to not specify who people are. I'm trying to pull back from
I
being
didn't say
specific.
blatant names, but I don't.
Yeah, but I mean it's an IMDb search away. But you know, look, it is a valid point that is being made there, and it does happen. Is the point that I believe that there is a lot of sexual harassment on the Bladtcast because you were both so attractive. And not to leave out Coltrane, who I've also sexually harassed on the Bladtcast. I've sexually harassed everyone on the Bladtcast except, of course, for Bujenski. And yes, obviously now I'm trying to make light of it to pick the mood back up. But Coltrane, that sort of issue, let's talk a little bit about that. Sort of harassment to men by women or also by other men. Your thoughts on how that's probably more commonplace than people are willing to talk about as well.
Yeah, I mean, I do sort of feel that way because, and it's sort of highlighted in a very generic sense of like when school teachers end up like hooking up with students, and it's like if a female teacher has sex with a male student, it's like, oh, good for that kid, you know, like all good, like there's no problem there. And it's like real because that's sort of again sort of a society thing where that's sort of how we've all sort of been like trained, but it's like that's still not okay, but it's like considered okay in society. So it does happen, but just because of just the views of men and women differently, like when it happens to a man, it's much more just like whatever, dude, like get over it, like it's not that big a deal. And so most people just don't deal with it. They just, you know, like Jeff said, like you either just sort of like blow it off and just like, whatever, or you just don't talk about it if you're like really uncomfortable about it or something. Like it's just, you sort of let it all go because it's the way that you think that you're supposed to deal with it. Like it's not supposed to bother you if like an older woman is into you. Like, so what? So like some older woman's into you, deal with it. And so, like, it is, like, it's unfair that that's sort of the perception and that's sort of how it plays out. I mean, sometimes because then you never really grow up knowing, like, what really is okay and what's not okay. So you have a difficult time understanding, like, why I should be attracted to this. Like, everyone tells me it should be okay that, like, this hot older woman's into me. Why am I not? And you just sort of, like, let it go, and it's so you don't really get a healthy opinion of the entire situation. So it does happen a lot more to men than anyone really, like, addresses, but it would be nice if like we did have that sort of change where everyone sort of addressed it on both sides of it, but I feel like that one will take a lot longer to get to.
Yeah, and I'll get to Captain here in a moment. In the chat, Jason Blair pointed out something that is relevant to this. Ever since he's been a parent, when you hear stories that affect kids, it impacts him completely differently than it did before. And it was about something else that he was saying that, but it's true. Like these stories about the sometimes very hot teacher that hooks up with the male student. It's very easy to look at that and be like, hey, why didn't that happen to me when I was a kid? But, now that I have a son and a daughter in the way, I probably think it's less fun and less funny. But I understand that culture that brings up the idea, if you're a kid and you have that opportunity, what's a 16, 15-year-old boy going to do if his hot teacher is like, hey, let's hang out? It's, it's the kind of situation that they shouldn't have to navigate at that age and, that sort of fragile mental state. So I understand that it's widespread, but I guess what I'm trying to say is I guess I have to concede that it's a problem, whereas, 20 years ago, the first really big one was that teacher, Deborah LaFave, who ended up marrying the student and then I think getting divorced, but that's besides the point. That was the first one where you're like, yeah, but look at her. And I guess in the 20 years since, you're like, oh, it happens a lot. And if it's a male teacher and a girl student, you're always very quick to be able to be outraged and upset about it. So I think that people are becoming more aware that it is a problem. By people, I mean me. Jeff, what were you going to say?
A couple of things now. One, I've known a teacher at my high school who basically waited until a girl graduated and then started dating her. So there was like
he waited till she graduated.
And I get that's fair. Oh, she's 18 now. You're 36. You're twice her age. That's still inappropriate.
Agreed. That is
straight up,
inappropriate.
still 100% inappropriate. But it was almost like a, oh, that's kind of like thing, but I guess you waited until she was like safe, so you're fine. And I'm just kind of like, what's the difference in the mentality? Like, oh, we've certified that she's now lived a couple months longer. She's cool. You can do whatever you want to her. She's able to make wise decisions she couldn't a couple months ago. Like that idea to me is stupid. Two, I think that the reason why misogyny is a lot kind of worse than the gender opposite roles, blatantly, as I was thinking this, is kind of call back to what I was talking about before. Like, and again, it's a Louis C.K. joke of like, things that a girl has to worry about when you go out on a blind date with somebody you don't know is getting murdered. That's not something a guy tends to have to think about. Like, it's possible,
right,
but it's not a thing. Like, there's a long history of guys murdering girls for not having sex with them. There's not a long history of women murdering men. It has happened, but it's just not the same thing. So it's like, that's what I think we forget sometimes, is like taking into consideration that it wasn't necessarily just like sexual violence that was happening to them, that there was like a very real threat, that they were worried that if they didn't like act complicitly in this, their life would be over.
There's an interesting statistic for an episode of my podcast that's coming out tomorrow.
The motivationreport.com?
Yeah, and it was that between the years like 2001, 2012, like something like 6,127 women were killed with a gun by an intimate partner, and that was more than the casualties in the Afghanistan and Iraq wars combined. So like
it's between, that was
2001 and 2012. So it's kind of an old. So I don't know if it's been updated,
but I mean,
but still 6,000
it's still
something.
a terrible number.
And it's so high, and obviously that we're not going to get into gun control, but like that, there's that element to it. But the fact that it's like more than a war, you know what I mean? It's like fucking crazy, and it's in a relationship scenario. So it happens all the time. And it's terrible.
Before we lighten the mood, the problem that we sort of touched on briefly is, I guess it's wrapped up in two things. In Hollywood specifically, look, there's a very famous director who there are allegations about sexual misconduct with men and also with young boys that are unfounded. And he may have directed some movies that I really like a lot. And you hear a lot of those things, and they're terrible. And you have to wonder, with this going on, is that other shoe about to drop, or maybe there isn't anything there. But I do, as an aspiring actor, and I don't mean to harass you when I say this, but a very attractive one.
Thank you.
I feel like this might be the sort of thing that you have, or unfortunately will run into.
Oh, a lot.
Talk a little bit
Already.
about that aspect of it.
Just as a person or in the industry?
You can talk about it either way, whatever you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah, so like my physicality is always like the first thing that people make jokes about, and then especially amongst, like I'm a big supporter and ally in, I think, of the LGBTQ community, but I for sure get groped and harassed anytime I go out to like WeHo or whatever. It's like I'll just look,
I'll
I'll
just
feel something
explain,
and look
that's
down, and
what-
there's just like a hand like on my
So
crotch.
that's West Hollywood here in
Yeah,
Los Angeles.
but it doesn't
And-
matter, that's
no,
the
no,
thing.
but that, because you said WeHo, I just want to
Yeah.
explain what it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and that is a very gay-centric
Right,
area.
which
yeah.
I love, and that's why I like to go out. And so I kind of just brush it off, and there's always jokes made about me and on other shows that I work on, and like relationships and things, and like it's to the point where like I'm just tired of it because it's like not funny anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's at a point where it's not just
Yeah,
like, oh,
so
yeah, especially when there's actual physical touching and grabbing. You know.
That's not a workplace thing. This is like going.
No,
out
I
to
know.
going
Oh,
out.
yeah. I'm glad you
But
clarified that.
it just gets fucking old, and it's like you also get tired of feeling like an object, and you want people to see you like a person and not like an object, because everything boils down to what they're doing to you, which is just objectifying you and making you sort of less than a person. So when they look at you and they talk to you, they don't really see you like 100%. They just see what they want and what they can get from you, and then that's kind of it. And that
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah.
And I mean, that's obviously something that, it's not just, obviously the incidents of the, I'm using air quotes for those not watching on YouTube, the casting couch, you hear about that. That's not
Yeah.
just for women. That is something that happens. You feel like, I have a friend who told me a very specific story about a guy who was ready to represent her early in her career. And he basically called her at like 3 a.m. and told her to come over, and she didn't. And then the career kind of slowed down at that
Right,
point.
right.
And it's, how many stories of that are there?
Tons.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that can also happen to men too. And because we're here on the Bladtcast, we're showbiz adjacent. We're not really in show business, but we're right on the cusp. We live in LA. We dance right close to it. That's sort of what we're talking about. But obviously, plenty of other industries you hear these kind of stories,
Right.
and we appreciate people sharing them with us if they want to after the fact. But at this point, I'd like to try and lighten the mood and ask Coltrane, what do you think is next for OJ?
Well, I mean, I know that he wants. I know there has been talk of him doing a reality show with Casey, but sadly, Casey's parents have said that they will sue her if she tries to do a reality show. So I'm not 100% sure what is next for OJ.
And by Casey, you
Maybe-
mean the future Mrs. Coltrane, Casey Anthony?
I was going to say the future love of my life, Casey Anthony.
Yeah. Okay, because you're not going to put a ring on it because you're not an idiot.
Damn right.
Is the reality show called Hit It and Acquit It?
Hey.
Look at that.
Wow.
Jeff is so quick.
By the way, that TV show would probably sell. I'm just saying.
Oh, that TV show would definitely sell. And anyone who thinks that an O.J. Simpson TV show wouldn't be put on the air, I'm sure that people are just sort of waiting for the right fit, the one that they think, the bloody glove. See, it all makes sense.
What about that book you wrote, If I Did It, Here's How?
Well, it was called If I Did It, and then Fred Goldman ended up publishing it, and I think they changed the title, and whatever money was made off of that book, he got. So
They
part
didn't
of
change
it,
the title. It just says I did it in
Yeah,
really
that's
big
right.
letters, and in really small type it says if.
Yeah, so that's right. I'm glad you pointed that out. It says I did it, O.J. Simpson, and in the beginning there's if. And
this picture.
I think that has something to do with why he lives in Florida. I don't quite know, because all of a sudden OJ gets out, and then there's all this signed USC and Buffalo Bills merchandise that's up there. Look, if there's a signed VHS copy of the first Naked Gun, I might bid on it. I'm not too proud to say that, but whatever anyone else seems.
Just because
to
you
think.
want to see him fall down the stadium steps in a
I mean,
wheelchair.
if you think about it, it is kind of funny that OJ gets dragged around Los Angeles.
The
by
word
Frank
if
Drebin.
is buried in the eye itself.
Take a look for those of you that want to see the title of that book. But look, OJ's going to be able to make money, and at some point, I think he owes Fred Goldman like $33 million.
Because he lost, so like he got acquitted on the criminal charges, but
Yeah,
he
that's
lost
the
the
civil
civil
suit,
So
yeah.
it's like he basically lost in the trial of whether or not he murdered her, and that's why the title looks like that, because with the civil suit, Goldman had the rights to like anything OJ did, and he has the rights to like garnish his wages and all these things.
Right.
So basically he was able to come in and edit the title so that it's like, oh, you want to write a book about how you murdered my daughter, you piece of shit? I'm going to make it say you did it, even when you're saying you didn't.
Right.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. So I know I went to a more serious place, but I'd like to find, I hope that OJ finds work, because if he doesn't, then he has a lot of free time on his hands. And look what happened the last time OJ had a lot of free times in his hands. He ended up going to jail in Nevada for like 9 years or whatever it was.
I'm not black, I'm OJ.
And by the way, I don't know if
Who is
anybody
that?
saw it, but there was a great.
I was going to say, yeah. Did you watch the documentary?
Which one was that? That's the
ESPN
The
documentary is
ESPN
the
one.
good
No,
one.
Yeah.
I did not. Culture, and your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because essentially he basically turned, like, he had spent his life turning his back on being black, but then when he needed it, he used it to his advantage, and then it was just like, nah, I'm not really black. And so it's like, so he didn't get as much love afterwards as he sort of could have, because like there were a certain group of people that felt like it was a balance in the criminal justice system. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that was a sentiment that was out there. And so so there was a lot of people who were just like, yep, he's black, and we don't want to see that happen again. But then it was like, again, he had spent all his life kind of distancing himself from being black, and then he distanced himself from the black community again, which is why there's like not as much. That's why if you ask a lot more people now, they'll be like, yeah, he did it. Even though at the time, basically it was not entirely, but there was a lot of racial divide as to whether or not he did it or didn't. And now it's less like that, and it's because basically like he actively, it was just like, nah, I'm not black, fuck that.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So the documentary is amazing. Anybody who has a chance, you should really watch. It's like 6 hours.
Yeah,
but it's really good. And that's the thing I was gonna say. What Coltrane's talking about is like the first 2 or episodes or so. It's like 2 hours. Is not at all about the murder. It's all like pre-murder. It's about Los Angeles and the zeitgeist, specifically the Rodney King beating and then acquittal, because that happened right before the whole OJ incident.
And that
which is
what
why
people forget.
There's an interview with jurors at the end of the documentary where like there's a lady who's straight up like, no matter what I saw, I was gonna vote not guilty because
I was mad
wasn't
about
gonna
Rodney
do
King.
it. And it basically is like the other thing that I found really interesting was it's like, because I was a kid when it happened, I didn't really understand everything, but it was like learning that history and learning the context under which these things were going on. The idea, because it's like basically he got acquitted from the idea that the police had committed a conspiracy against him. Well, if the police committed conspiracy against you, no shit, every piece of evidence is going to make you look super guilty. So it's almost like everything that makes us be like, how could you think he's not guilty, is exactly why he could have looked like he was the victim of a conspiracy at the time. If you really believed that the Los Angeles Police Department and judicial system was as corrupt as it blatantly was. Like Garcetti was a piece of shit. The guy before him was the guy, the original leader, AD for the Menendez trial, and he was trying to like remove patient-doctor confidentiality. Like the Los Angeles legal system from the judicial and the police side in like the 80s and 90s is basically the worst it was. And before that, it was just blatantly racist.
Just a little shining a light on this whole situation by our resident Bladtcast legal expert, Jason Blair, who I know for some reason I think we can't actually call him that. So a guy we know in the chat is saying, I know why he lives in Florida. It's a legal reason. Florida has the largest homestead exemption in the country. The homestead exemption is the base amount you can keep from debtors to maintain your existence. And that's why CEOs always move to Florida and buy a mansion right before the company goes down the tubes. And our friend Kevin Scott, thanks for joining us in the chat. He says, freaking Nordberg, just to go back to Naked Gun movies. I'm glad Kevin's joined us at this point. And he also says another reason why Florida should be sawed off from the mainland United States. That is Kevin Scott.
Wouldn't that make us like a transgendered country?
Because you just cut off our dong. Anyway, it'll be fascinating to see.
Their time.
Be fascinating to see where we go with the OJ story after this. What's next for the juice?
I feel like he's just going to keep low profile at this point because what
You are
possible
absolutely,
benefit
you're absolutely
could he get
wrong
from
because
it?
he needs money. He definitely needs money.
Yeah.
And
But if
he
you're
also
smart-
probably likes the limelight. So,
But that's why I'm saying
probably.
you should keep it local, man. Like,
So-
because it's Florida, because it's a state where everybody is the worst and loves being the worst, they'll probably embrace OJ. They'll be like, "Oh, you're an evil criminal? Like, you're our kind of people, Florida."
Coltrane, we're gonna let you get back to your drive momentarily.
Picture like, did you guys see the picture like I don't know, like a week ago?
No.
Him out at a bar chatting up ladies.
Was that what it was, Coltrane? The picture of him at a bar chatting up the ladies?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. It's like him.
Uh-oh. Sorry, say that again, Coltrane.
I said it was him and two chicks in bikinis.
Oh, I didn't see
jeez.
that.
For anybody that didn't see it, there was a really funny SNL sketch when Gal Gadot hosted where she was out on a blind date, but she was from another country and didn't know who the guy was, and it turned out he was OJ. It's actually a really funny sketch. For people should check it out because I think there's some good laughs. And by people, I mean Will, because I know he's a Gadot fan.
Hey, who's not?
Well, yeah, I don't know actually. I was trying to think. Whoa, Coltrane, are you
Don't
not?
go there.
You don't like her?
I mean, I don't think she's like. I mean, I don't know. I'm just indifferent to her.
Okay.
Did you see Wonder Woman?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that would help your
All right.
cause.
Yeah.
But if not, if
I mean, but it's like you're like, oh my god, like Will's totally into her, and it's like that's great. I'm just not. Like I'm not saying she's not attractive. I'm just saying.
well, look,
I don't think she's as attractive as everyone else thinks.
my uncle kind of broke it down that he saw Wonder Woman, he thought it was good, he thinks she's cute, but he misses Linda Carter because she had such big cans, and I was like, well, what can I say to that?
Wow.
Linda Carter had huge cans.
Yeah.
I you know, it's sort
Those
of.
would get in the way if you're fighting. Though,
Yeah, they're not
honestly.
practical.
I
Do
mean,
you see a lot of UFC chicks with big tits?
I don't
No.
think so.
Why do you think Amazon's cut off one boob?
Yeah.
Is that what they do?
Yeah.
What do you know?
They're just punching bags, man.
Because tis the
Get in
season, tis the season of Halloween, Coltrane. Before we let you go and get back to your drive, we're going to transition, talk a little bit about Halloween for a bit. And I wanted to, before you go, are there some all-time costumes from your memory? And we have talked about this on the Bladtcast before. Have you seen any good costumes planned for this year, or maybe you've seen people out and about? Or do you have some all-time best/worst costumes that stand out for you?
I mean, you know, like as far as this year, not really. I mean, I've never really been like all that big on costumes or anything, so I don't really care. But when I lived back in LA, and like there was always a party down in West Hollywood, so there were some great costumes there. So I will say that I definitely missed that because like running through like the streets of Hollywood.
Yeah, running through the streets and seeing all sorts of
The
crazy things going
inspiration
on.
for the Starbucks unicorns.
What?
Have you ever seen the Starbucks unicorn
I have.
drink?
I have not.
That
Oh,
was
yeah,
like
the
a whole
drink.
thing,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay, I do know what you're talking about. Sorry, I wasn't thinking about the unicorn drink. I'm like, wait, I was gonna let it go and act like I knew, but then I got confused. I know what you're saying, Coltrane, and what we've talked about in the podcast before is that we as men always appreciated girls who took the opportunity to be like, oh, I'm just going to be a sexy cat. I'm going to be a sexy mouse, you know, basically sexy animal because I'm going to wear a short skirt and draw some whiskers on my face. And it's anything that is an excuse for that, obviously, was something that Bladtcast Nation would always be supportive of. But obviously, we're just looking, you know, we're just looking.
Yep.
But if we're going to learn anything from the last 45 minutes, it's the fact that you just look, you know,
can appreciate.
unless she approaches you, then game on.
Right.
Well, Coltrane, we really appreciate you joining us on your drive. And Will asked us before we started, you're not driving back cross country, are you?
Not currently, no.
Okay. Oh, but it could be in the future. All right.
Uh-oh.
So if we get some good news from the Will Tourage, that might happen. Well, Coltrane, all the spam bots watching should refollow you at Coltrane Leaks. And anything else? Any other shout-outs you want to give before we go? Before we let you go?
No, I think I'm good right now. I think I'm all caught up.
Because Coltrane
I'll
Leaks
think of something in 5 minutes, but not now, you know?
Well, you can always text it to me while you're driving because that's safe. All right, well, that's our friend Coltrane, a big part of the Bladtcast. So you need to hang up because I can't from here. So when
No, you hang up.
Yeah, no, you hang up. When the driving allows you to hang up, please do, and we will definitely talk to you soon here on the Bladtcast. Coltrane.
Fingers crossed for some road rage.
Well, and we know what a fan you are
There
of
he
road
goes.
rage.
He was like, bye.
Anyways, great to have Coltrane with us.
Yes.
It was interesting that he was driving, and there was a little bit of background noise the whole time,
Yes.
but we call that ambient sound.
Right. Now that it's gone, you kind of miss it.
I do
the
actually.
room
I mean,
tone, man.
I
Yeah.
definitely miss Coltrane though.
So
It was
quiet.
great. I love talking to that guy. We don't talk to him nearly enough anymore, and always good. And look, I saved some very important issues that I thought were good Coltrane issues to
Yes.
have on the Bladtcast because we could have talked about some of those on Bladtcast 249. But that was where we were edging to 250. That's the title of that episode.
I like it.
Because you love you some edging. But we're going to talk about Halloween for probably the rest of the show now. And, there's only 4 more hours of the show, so everybody stay tuned. We'll check the tote board and see how much money we've raised for Christian's kids. That's right.
Let's say we got
KARS.
Yeah.
a donation for Matt and Casey barbecue.
Oh,
That's it so far.
No, he's not asking you to send us more barbecue. Matt and Casey does too much for us.
does.
Because for those of you watching on YouTube, Jeff and I have Bladtcast t-shirts
Yeah.
on. And as always, Will does not match the theme.
Who had this logo designed for you?
Will Sterling for
you're
free, and I
welcome.
love this logo.
I mean, I didn't make it. My friend
No,
Michelle
but your friend did
made it.
And we also have our Bladtcast mugs,
Yeah.
neither of which we would have if not for Matt and KC at Sober as a Bird. And I never found out what his friends from the soap company thought of our
Oh,
mentioning it during
yeah.
the show.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they listened, so Matt in the chat, that rhymed,
Matt in
let
the
us
chat.
know. We're going to talk a little bit about Halloween. We'll, if you're in the chat now, you can share with us some of those costumes. I know some of you shared them earlier, so I'll scroll up and find them.
Yeah.
But
No, fuck you. Do it now.
do it again.
Do it again.
No, look, it's all right. Don't listen to Jeff. That's why there's no EOcast. Listen to how you talk to the people.
Wow.
This
But-
is why I do it once every 10 years. You got to get them really
You got-
wanting
get
it.
them so angry.
I'm just going to stick on this idea that I do something once every 10 years.
I can't wait till you do it though. It's gonna be
10
great.
years from now,
Fucking
everyone's going to be
Richard
like,
Linklater
so
of
where is
podcasting.
it?
Where is it? Yeah. So Agent Sterling, Will Sterling had
Yeah.
his. This isn't an annual
No.
Halloween because it's a Halloween housewarming. It's a
This was a
different
Halloween
party.
housewarming, but I've had a Halloween. I've hosted a Halloween party every year for like several years.
Yeah, I
so
think
it's gonna keep up.
It's going to keep it going. But
Yeah.
this was also a combination housewarming party.
Yes, it was.
And thank God that it was no longer 107 degrees in the valley.
Correct.
It was hot inside the party, but at least we could go outside.
There's an AC unit going.
Yeah, the wall unit.
I didn't think it was too hot.
No,
but then
I
again,
mean,
I wasn't wearing a lot of clothes.
I
You
had a sweater on. And yes, let's talk a little bit about how you were dressed.
Yes.
And your costume, because we alluded to it, I don't know, like an hour and a half ago here on the episode. Actually,
Right.
like about an hour and 20 minutes ago. So anyway, talk about your costume and the party a little bit.
I
about
was Freddie Mercury of the band Queen, and I wore this like onesie jumpsuit that was like glittery and a fake mustache, and I had a microphone, and it was great. But
It
it
was
was
a
a
great
very
look.
revealing jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Because it cuts down. Google any of those fucking pictures of Freddie Mercury, and you know what I'm talking about.
And by
He
the
had
way,
all these different styles of jumpsuits.
And Will has posted pictures on Instagram at
Yes.
Will Sterling _.
Yeah, it's
and you
up
can
there
also,
now.
and I have one of the three of us at Christian DMZ.
It's good.
So-
It's already got a lot of likes. People are digging it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep, people big fan of this.
People big fan of that look. And that's a good look.
Yeah,
And,
the nipples kept coming out. It was it's a big deal.
I was dressed as Mr. Rogers, which some
I didn't
people
get it.
got. You did not get it.
No, it took me a long time.
And somebody is going up the stairs. They're like, "Are you Ken Bone?" And I'm like, "Ken Bone." People don't necessarily remember Ken Bone, but during last year's presidential election, which people may or may not remember, was won by Donald Trump.
Ask,
There was
like
a
some weird energy questions.
yeah, so it was the town hall one, and this guy Ken Bone had on. He basically was dressed like Mr. Rogers, and then he was like an internet sensation, and then all of a sudden people like dug a little deep and were like, "Oh, I don't know if we like this guy," allegedly. So
What, was he a pedophile? Because that's the first thing that came to my
Allegedly.
head.
when you saw him?
Yeah.
I don't believe he was a pedophile, but I think that there was like some back taxes or something. I'm not going to allege anything though to Ken Bone. But I was like, no, that would have been a great costume last year, Ken
Yeah.
Bone, but not this year. I
Yeah.
mean, Ken Bone. So yeah, I was Mr. Rogers. And Jeff, I would like you to talk about your costume. And keep in mind that this is not in the frame, unfortunately.
Should I take it?
Yeah, why don't you grab it
yeah,
and
yeah.
we'll
down.
explain it. We're not going to close up on it because I don't want to make the actual hardworking engineers of Afterbuzz TV have to do this for Jeff. So anyway, we will tweet out a picture and post it on Instagram. Jeff has a piece of paper that says Star War, And there's a pretty boss-looking X-wing,
Yeah, it's
and a
decent-
shite-looking TIE fighter, and a
It's
couple
just
stick
two
figures.
rectangles
Yeah.
stacked on top of each
And
other.
so you had that piece of paper affixed to a white T-shirt, and that was your Star Wars shirt.
Yeah, there's literally duct tape on the
Now,
back of this that I used
Did
to
you
tape
do
down.
that
Yeah.
because on the Bladtcast I said, hey, you should do like you did for the May the 4th be with you Bladtcast, where you taped a Star Wars DVD to your shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was partly that inspiration and partly like I was just like, how can I be even lazier? Like, how can I? Because to me, like, I'm just like one of those weird oppositionally defiant people who thinks like the best kind of Halloween costume is a Halloween costume where I refuse to get dressed up and basically like make a commentary on getting dressed up by writing fucking Star Wars on a piece of paper. I'm like, look how stupid you all are by me being stupider. Like, I don't know why I love those kinds of things,
Yeah.
but that's always been like my MO is like show up to a party without dressing up and find some way to justify it.
I mean, Natasha had a similar
Yeah,
thing.
exactly what I was about to mention. Asian Romanoff had a shirt, and hers was a lot nicer than that because it was like, I don't know, it looked like it was, not decoupage, but what is
so
that?
I had already made this by
Yeah.
the time she got home because she was working yesterday. And then I was like, so should we make you one or whatever? And she was like, yeah. And then I was like, how about like a Stranger Things one? I was like, even better, Strangest Thing.
Exactly.
And
So
that's
you
what
were
she wrote.
Star War, and she was Strangest Things, and no one can sue either one of you.
I don't know why the Star Wars thing reminds me of one of my favorite cosplay like pictures. It was like all like basically like the Latino like Hispanic version of Star Wars characters. So it was like the kind of cholo like kind of thing, and it was Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I love it.
Was our friend Watto involved in that, by the way?
I don't think so.
You don't think he was there?
No, I don't think so.
I actually have some. I came up with some good names of the different Star Wars characters.
Oh, that's right. You did research. I forgot about this.
Yeah. So
Or show prep. You did show prep.
Ham Tandem,
Tandem. Okay, I like it.
Duchess Leah Organic,
Oh, I do like that.
Lark Pond Skimmer,
Lark Pond Skimmer.
Old Wonton Kentucky,
Okay, I like Old Wonton, Kentucky.
and Bullwinkle.
Oh, for Chewbacca. But Bullwinkle's a character, so you
That's
used
why I
another
like it.
character.
Because
name.
once again, I'm like, oh, I'm being creative. I better stop. I better just rip something off.
There were some solid costumes at the party last night. I think Will's was the best.
Hey.
And Jeff's was the second best.
Thanks.
Because
I love that was the worst part. Or like, I actually felt bad going home because Natasha was like, everybody seemed to like your costume and like didn't even care about mine, and I was like, I'm sorry.
well, to be fair, she
This-
borrowed my red cardigan at one point, so
Yeah.
people couldn't see it.
That's true, too.
My favorite moment though was there was the guy there who had on the bow tie, and I don't remember what his costume was. And he's like, "People don't know what I am." I'm like, "What are you, young Sheldon?" And so he laughed, and he thought that like, "Oh, that's what I should tell people." And I was like, "Well, yeah, because whatever his
He
name
was
was."
a viner. That was the thing. Like,
I
it wasn't
still
even
don't
the
know-
name
I
of a
don't know what
viner.
that means.
He was just called somebody who did vines or something. I'm
No,
assuming.
posted on the app Vine that people don't use
Yeah.
anymore because like
Some
Instagram
famous
stories.
Vimer type
Oh,
thing. Like that,
that's
like
too bad.
that was the impression I got, or that was from what they had said, and I was like, "Oh, terrible costume," and I just kept moving on. With
One of
what's going.
one of Will's friends was there, and she was dressed as a Little Red Riding Hood, who had already had an altercation with the Big Bad Wolf.
One of my friends.
And she had to scratch. What? You can say whatever you want
You're
about
keeping
that.
it very. That's good.
You can say that however you want to. You add anything to that comment that you'd like to. That's up to you. That's not my. It's not my story to tell.
It's someone I fancy. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're a fancy lad and you fancy a lass.
Do you remember that you wrote down
Yes.
one of my jokes
Oh, I
last
was
night?
about to get to it. And we were talking to her. She's a great girl. I really enjoyed talking to her. I talked to her for a few minutes, and she found out about me being married because she's like, "Oh, is the ring part of the costume?" And I'm like, "No, I have a wife." She's like, "Where is she?" And I explained where my wife is. My wife's still in New York because her episode of Orange is the New Black is filming currently, so she was excited about that. I talked about how she was pregnant with our daughter, who will be with us, who will be dropping by December 19th.
Shit.
And I talked about our son Felix. And so she knew so much about me in the space of 2 minutes, and I just referenced her, and she's like, "Wow, she knows a lot about you." We liked her a lot. Jeff and I did. And there was a moment that was very funny. Can you set it up, or should I set it up? The context of it.
I guess I think you're gonna have to set it up.
Okay. So Now I forget why you said the
All right,
thing.
so then I'll set it
Yes,
up.
so set it up.
So
Set up the clip,
All right,
goddammit.
fuck, yeah.
Don't wait for the translation.
So we were discussing William having some like good times, and then there was a discussion of the Beetlejuice house.
That's what- yeah, I couldn't remember
Beetlejuice
that
was
part of
like streaming on the projector.
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the Tim Burton themed restaurant.
So it was
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, there's this like Tim Burton themed restaurant, and they're just like talking about Tim Burton and all these things. I was like, the guy who makes the snowboards, just like stopped the whole conversation.
the whole conversation, like you could hear that, like everything stopped down cold, and she was, but she, you know, look, she'd had a cocktail or two.
To tell you the truth, I don't even know if I understand that joke. The guy who makes the snowboards.
So explain the joke, because there's nothing better than, as Dennis Miller used to always talk about, Larry Miller, the comedy deprogrammer. It's like, wait, let's talk about that joke. So talk about the joke, explain it.
So Burton is a snowboard and skateboard company
Okay.
that has been like very popular for a long time.
Gotcha.
So like Burton skateboard or snowboards is like one
Right.
of the top echelon snowboard companies.
And-
so
And here I thought you were talking about Tony Hawk.
That's what I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
because that
that's
was
what
the
Will
joke
said,
that
yeah.
Will made afterwards was like, because that, well, the best part about that was like, so I make that joke as just like a typical Jeff offhand, I'm going to say something dumb and we'll keep continuing the conversation, like not thinking it would stop things down. But then she like refused to go any further
No,
until I
'cause she-
explained
Yeah,
the joke.
she was so mad that you're like, you don't know Tim Burton? You know? And you're like, no, I do. I was just making a dumb joke. And then you saw me. I took out my phone and I wrote that down and I just showed you. I'm like, that's for tomorrow.
And then I snuck another one in after she started talking that I think only Will got, because it was a reference to Will's being like, yeah, like Tony Hawk and blah, blah, blah. And then so she's like, so yeah, so Tim Burton, I was like, after he landed the 900. And just like, I just kept making comments like that because that's me. I think it's fun.
I have no recollection of that conversation.
Oh, really?
Wow, I didn't realize I drank that much.
Because
you
Will
were
was
in a very fun place. Like by
shit-faced.
the time
Yeah.
I got there,
drunk?
Yeah,
it was-
yeah.
We were out by like
I
your
didn't
back
think I was
door.
that drunk in the moment.
You
I felt
never
like
did.
I'd
And
been
I don't
drunk.
mean you
No, but
personally, but
like-
one never thinks they're
I
that
know, but
drunk.
I mean, like, I feel like I know I've been more drunk than that in the past, and I was like, felt like I was just like,
I think you've
didn't-
been more drunk than that in this studio, actually, if
okay.
I had to guess.
Yes.
But
You didn't seem like you were necessarily like so inebriated,
Yeah.
but I think it was like more than just the alcohol inebriation. You were like emotionally inebriated to an extent, because it was like by the time we got there, it was things like, I'm going out back, I'm infatuated, and like those were the kinds of comments.
Did he
you
say
were-
that?
Yeah.
I said that?
you said that?
Wow.
Wow.
I remember saying that.
Look at,
it
you
was like-
are a fancy
It
lad.
was like, oh, I'm gonna follow so and so.
yeah, whoever this person is.
And so it was like those were the kinds of comments that had been made beforehand. So it was like I just got the impression that it was just like Will's enjoying his party as he's meant to.
And then I remember you were
I
going
mean,
to
I
go.
had a good time.
You were
Yeah.
going to go out one door to the outside so that you and Natasha could talk.
Yeah.
And they were out there talking. So
Yeah.
you
So
were
we
like,
had
we
to
got to go
talk
the other way. Yeah. And I just followed everything, and we ended up outside for a while to cool down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I gave your girlfriend my cardigan, although I had to take it back.
Yeah.
But I've promised it to her. After Halloween, it's hers. I don't need it anymore.
She
Although that
stole
might
my
come as
BoJack sweater from my costume a couple years ago. She's just a sweater thief.
that sounds like her. In all honesty,
Lisa
I don't
wrote
know,
a song
do-
about her.
Do you remember any particularly good costumes during the course of the evening?
My
There
friends
were
had the
peop-
robot suits from
Which
Flight of the
took up the whole
Conchords.
living room because-
they were so big.
Yeah.
00001 00001.
See, I didn't get it because I haven't seen that episode. I've only seen like 2 episodes. There was a Ron Swanson there. There was a Star Lord.
Oh, Star-Lord was good,
Yeah.
except he had to carry the helmet all the time.
Yeah,
And
I didn't
that-
know he was Star-Lord until I saw his helmet and was like, oh.
Well, he had that T-shirt on from the second movie. That's how I knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, man, that sucks. You have to carry the helmet.
Well, he was standing next to young Sheldon, so I just wasn't. I was just like, oh, regularly dressed people.
My
Cool.
my
Right.
roommate and her friends were like rainbow butterflies.
Oh, I was just felt like they were costumes, you know,
Kinda.
like girls just put on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And you remember it was very nice. I'd never met her before,
Yeah.
and I got to chat with her, talk to a few people. Some of the regulars weren't there. Did you invite the whole usual crowd? I'm basically
did.
talking about Thomas Parham.
I did. Yeah,
He
Tom
was not
wasn't
there. Tom wasn't
Tom's
there.
a married man now.
Yeah.
Tom wasn't there. My friend Jack and Joey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was like a core group of Will Sterling friends that I usually talked to at your
Right.
parties, and none of them were there. I was looking forward to talking
Times
to
they
Thomas
are
Parham.
changing, Christian.
I know, and I don't like change.
Look,
Do you find you're hanging out with like different groups of friends now that it's less of like a couples situation?
yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's a sort of change.
Do your married
organically.
friends not want to hang out with you as much or
No.
in the same way?
No, they do.
It's just a
There
question.
were a lot of people that had told me that were regulars that some were in Vegas, some were out of town for a different thing. Like there were a lot of people that were just like, and then somebody texted me they got sick, they couldn't make it. So the people were, yeah.
Well, I like that you're continuing to have the parties, and obviously Halloween is on Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit more.
Oh,
about
how was the
Halloween.
pumpkin cookies this time around?
Pumpkin cookies were
so
fantastic.
fucking good.
They were good. They just looked different. They looked
They were.
completely different than ever before, but they
Yeah.
tasted so
I
good.
don't know why
Exactly.
They
what I
look different. I made the recipe. I made it from scratch this time.
Oh,
Or not from
because
scratch. I
your
made
new
it from memory.
Because your new apartment is at sea level. That's the difference.
That's
because
it.
we're in the valley.
That's it.
That's probably
That's
what
it.
is. Yeah, and but I look forward to having you post on November 1st because that's the day you start listening to Christmas music.
Joy to the World Day, motherfuckers.
I love that you have that day.
Yeah.
I used to love Christmas music, and then it was like moving out here and never getting to celebrate Christmas with my family made me just stop giving a shit. Like to a sad extent. Like I
No,
used
I'm
to
sad-
really
I'm
love
sad to hear you
Christmas,
say
and now
that.
I'm just kind of like, oh, Christmas.
You want to
fine.
celebrate with Will,
I'm a little less
Maybe.
aggressive about it these days.
but you
to be honest with you.
listen to it though.
Love it.
I mean, you're gonna listen that day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll probably get one in there.
Just one.
Probably.
Just one song.
It's a lot less than I used to need it for something because it sort of like helped me cope with things, and like now I don't need it so much.
All right. Well, I'm gonna call you and
Still
I'm
love
gonna.
Christmas.
What's the
I'm
number
gonna-
one Christmas song though? Like, what's the one that
Good
you have
question.
to listen to first?
It's always it's usually Christmas time is here from Charlie Brown.
I'm gonna.
watched the fucking Great Pumpkin yet. I gotta watch that.
I have to watch it with Felix basically
God.
tomorrow because
Oh my
he hasn't
God.
seen it yet. And yeah, there's just been so much going on. Bladtcast 250 has just consumed my life and the life of all 10 people watching now in the chat. Thank you.
Hey.
But anyway, so I'm excited about you posting about that day, and we'll tease it forward a little bit. We have some very exciting episodes of the Bladtcast, audio-only episodes, but we're going to do a Thor Ragnarok episode, we're going to do a Justice League episode, we're going to do a Punisher episode, and I hope we do a Star Wars Episode 8 interview episode, but we'll see if I get out to that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on when Baby Girl Blatt drops.
Baby.
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Blatt daughter.
That's her name.
There it
Finally,
is.
we came
TBD.
up with it. And I had somebody say to me earlier today that it's so easy to come up with girl names. They can't believe I don't have it. No, it's the hardest thing ever.
Marie Antoinette Blatt.
Done. Thank you. So I've solicited people online for sex. No, I've solicited people online for stories of great costumes, terrible costumes, whether it's this year or all time. And we've had this guy. Thanks, Clanky. That's it. That's Jeff's costume today. I'm Clanky. Hi, I'm Clanky the Clown. Hi, everybody. So we got some good ones, some good costumes. I'll start. And then I'll ask you guys, so rack your brains for some of your favorite all times, whether it's yourself or ones that you've seen at a party.
My favorite costume is myself. Just being
as Will Sterling.
Yeah.
That's a fucking awesome costume.
I get to wear it
By
every
the way,
day.
I could not pull it off.
get to
I
wear
would
it
not
every
be
day.
able to do that costume. Let's see. Jason Blair says he learned a lesson. Don't dress up as Spock when you are in your first year of law school, unless you want the professors to hammer you with questions all day long. Matt and KC, my best was a Hitman costume a few years ago.
Wow.
He shaved his head and everything. Now, the Matt and KC I know has a shaved head, so I
Yeah.
guess maybe it was basically just for that. And I guess Jason said I used to greet all women at the bar like Crocodile Dundee, but I don't know if that's in reference to that or to something else entirely. But anyway, Jeff, favorite all-time costumes? You seem to not be somebody who puts a lot of, effort into costumes. So what are some that you've seen that you remember?
I mean, I always just, I don't know. There's no real costumes that I can think of that I'm like, oh, what a costume. I see like other people that have like costumes I've bought that just didn't work out. Like
Yeah.
any of those inflatable costumes, ones where you have to
Oh,
like
yeah, like
like
the
the
T-Rex and
T-Rex
shit.
or what. I had one that was like, you're riding a flamingo and like there's a blown up flamingo around you. I tried using it. It was just the worst, dumbest fucking costume ever.
Yeah.
So it's like I see people with those working and I'm always like, what did you do? Like, how did you get it to work? I also hate costumes because as like a I guess not typically shaped person, just in terms of like I'm a little bit longer in the torso and stuff, I can't have the hardest goddamn time finding costumes that fit. I once bought a Ninja Turtle costume when I was out here. It straight up like almost ripped my nutsack in half. Like my whole dick and balls were completely showing
It's a
every
division
time I wore it. So I was like, okay, like how does this, why can't I get a costume that doesn't show my dick off? Like Come
Well,
on.
because
Look,
it's
I
so
wanted
big.
the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
All these problems with this monstrous dick.
I've seen people post or reposting a picture that is on the internet of it's like a whole group of kids sitting on the couch with those like really shitty store-bought like 70s costumes, which still sold in the 80s and probably into the 90s. So you guys might have had some of them, but the ones with the really bad plastic mask and like the vinyl, like I had the worst Spider-Man costume ever.
Yeah.
Because here I was crazy, and it was like 1985, and I was like, oh, Mom, it'd be really cool if for Halloween I could have a black Spider-Man costume, and she was like, nope, you're gonna wear the shitty plastic one that your brother wore 5 years ago. And I'm like, okay. And it was bad because it like says Spider-Man at the top of the
you're like,
costume.
Spider-Man doesn't put his name on his fucking
No,
costume.
He doesn't need to
People know who
advertise.
Spider-Man
People knows who
is.
he is. And I just, God, those costumes were the worst. But you could get your characters and anything. But you know the little bit of history as to what became of a Captain Kirk mask.
Yes,
Go ahead and tell people.
it became Michael Myers.
Yeah, they just spray painted it.
Yeah, it was just a cheap, shitty one from like a CVS type store, drugstore, and they just got painted it white, and that became the iconic mask for Michael Myers.
Yeah, and what are some of your favorite all-time costumes
That I've done?
that you've done or seen?
When I was
just
a
stand
kid,
out
I
in your
did
memory?
Batman like twice in a row, and I'm sure it was like the same super shitty cheap,
Yeah.
but in
Which
my
Batman,
memory,
though?
the Michael
George
Keaton.
Clooney, the only one.
Okay.
The
Because
only
I
one that
dressed up
matters.
as Jim Carrey's Riddler.
Nice.
That's
Spray painted my hair orange. And
I love
everything.
that jacket. Like that Riddler, it's a cool look. But anyway,
This is when Batman Returns had come out.
Okay.
And I did that like 2 years in a row. Then I did a Ninja Turtle. That was great. I did my mom made me a Power Rangers costume. I was the
Sweet.
Black Ranger. And then the mask. Jim Carrey's. I love the mask.
somebody shot me.
I was obsessed with that fucking movie.
So much that you actually saw the prequel, sequel, or whatever.
I did not see Son of the Mask.
Yeah, that did not
no,
look good.
No,
Yeah.
but they had a mask cartoon show.
Yeah,
I watched
I was
I
just
remember
about
that.
to say,
I
but
like the
didn't you watch
cartoon.
the
Yeah.
cartoon? Like when they used to just make shitty generic cartoons for
For any
successful
successful
movie, like
movie.
Yeah.
Men in Black. Let's just quote that one line, like "Welcome to Earth."
Yeah.
Welcome to Earth. Well, that's actually the Independence
yeah,
Day.
I know.
But yeah, and it was weird because usually the guy who did Dan Castellaneta, the guy who did the voice of Homer, was usually the main voice. Like he was the fake genie on the on the Aladdin sequels and I think the TV series too.
Yep.
And I might be wrong that he was the mask as well, but it just in my mind.
I think that
he
was
is.
Rob Paulson.
I think you think you might be right.
His name was Robert Paulson.
His name was Robert Paulson.
Well, yeah, and
So
those
your
are
Batman
some
costumes,
favorites.
yeah.
Those are some favorites.
But those are just store-bought ones. You were just
Those are
excited
old
to
school.
do.
Yeah, I just liked.
I have a couple of favorites. The same Halloween, and I know which one it is because of what my costume was. I've talked about this in the Bladtcast before. I'm 100% sure of this. But 1996, I was Bob Dole. So I put some. I wore my suit. I had a little pen in my hand, and I just stayed there like that. And I went around. I was like, well, I did a bad impression of Norm Macdonald. I was like, Bob Dole wants to trick or treat. It was stupid. I didn't trick or treat, but I was in college. I was going to parties and stuff. And somebody asked me if I was Richard Nixon, and I was like, thanks. And I went around, and that was my favorite costume that I ever did. And not just because, it's funny, different time and place. Just some random girl just grabbed my junk at this party I was at. I didn't mind it. But, I don't know why. I guess she'd always wanted to check Bob Dole's prostate, I suppose.
She had a thing for power.
That Halloween, when I was in college, I was in Poughkeepsie, New York, and there was a place called The Chance that's actually still there. They were having like a Halloween party, and everybody from my school was there, at least if they were of age. And so the best costume I ever saw, which I've seen since, but it was just so perfectly done. This girl, Shannon, that I knew, she went as Carrie. She wore her prom dress from a few years earlier and just spattered it with blood. And I'm like, great, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was such a great costume. I've seen people do it since. But that is one of my favorite costumes. Now we're going to move a little bit down the list of bad costumes. My friend Bill suggested, or he actually just told me the story. I once saw someone in New Jersey dressed in blackface as Tiger Woods with a golf club smashed over her head. Yeah.
What? Smashed over her head?
I think the person was a girl.
So
in blackface.
it was probably Tiger Woods post like the whole run-in
Yeah.
with Elin where he got like, beat up by his
yeah.
wife.
But the
ex-wife
reason
now.
why I mentioned this is because it reminded me, oddly enough, junior year of high school, there was a kid in my class whose name I won't say. He came to school blackface.
Uh-oh.
And he was asked to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've talked about how small my school was, but there was a black family in my school.
Yeah.
So he almost was able to get away with it, but he still would have been sent home.
What was he trying to dress up as?
He was well, let's put it this way: he brought a gigantic boombox as well, so he was definitely going
Radio
for
Raheem.
Like a rapper.
He was probably Radio Raheem.
Yep.
Love hate.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, that's not cool. No. And this is not the worst thing this guy did while I went to school with him. My friend Jen sent me a link that's out there. There's a toddler dressed up as Pennywise that is super creepy that I will not share here on the YouTube page, but people can find it. My sister dressed up. She has the David Tennant dress.
Yeah.
And her little daughter Caitlin, who's about to turn 4, at least I hope it's 4, otherwise I'm embarrassing myself, is dressed as Rose.
Okay.
So I thought that was cute, even though Rose, don't get me started. And my friend Jessica has somebody she knows, at least I assume somebody she knows, was dressed as Negan, and his girlfriend was dressed as Lucille. I don't watch The Walking Dead, but I know that actor who plays the character Negan, and Lucille is his bat. So that with the barbed wire on it.
Yeah.
So those are some fun costumes, I think. But not as good. That Freddie Mercury is kind of all time now because let's talk about the mustache.
Fuck
It was-
yeah.
it
Because
was
the
a
mustache,
solid
because
costume.
Will Sterling, God love you,
Can't
you
grow a
can't
mustache.
grow a mustache.
No,
it's just not
no,
going to happen.
no.
Yeah. So
The
you
mustache
had
was legit.
to have the fake one.
Yeah.
Mark Hunt has the worst costume. Back in the mid-'90s, his wife and he were visiting a friend of theirs. Their young son was around 7 or 8 at the time. This is long. Her son was about to go trick-or-treating, and he wanted to show us his costume. He comes running out of a bedroom in blackface. Oh, this is a theme. Wearing an afro wig, a football jersey, brown gloves, carrying a football, and a plastic bloody butcher knife. He started yelling, "I'm O.J. Simpson!" We were speechless. Our friend thought it was cute, and went out with him that night. Needless to say, our friend was more than a little weird. But little Arthur grew up to become a decorated Navy SEAL, so at least there's that, I guess.
Oh, I've got another favorite costume
Please do.
because of the circumstance. You guys seen American Psycho?
Yes.
So there's the scene where he is chasing after the girl covered in blood with a chainsaw and butt naked except for tennis shoes. So I was in college and I just always wanted to do that costume, but I couldn't find flesh colored underwear, so I just wore a pair of whitey tighties and then sneakers and had a fake chainsaw and covered myself in fake blood and just ran around screaming.
I love it.
So
When was this?
a
while ago?
junior year of college.
Okay. And
I was going to my friend's house. I was staying at the house. So I wasn't out in public, so it wasn't going to be indecent.
That's a little bit better.
Yeah. So,
I was
so when
wondering.
I get to the house, I just blow through the front door, and I'm just screaming ah, with the chainsaw and shit, and covered in blood, pretty much butt naked. His parents are sitting on the couch with these 2 girls, who I find out later were because his family's Mormon, were missionaries, sister missionaries.
Oh, okay.
And they'd never seen a man that unclothed before in their entire lives.
You weren't
that.
even wearing the sacred underwear.
I love the magic underwear. I love that part of the story.
Holy
See, that's a
knees.
great one, and I'm sure it's weird. Bujenski just texted me and he wants to know if he can see pictures of you in that costume. So
Oh.
go figure.
They exist.
By the way, Bujenski liked
Facebook.
the Instagram post about this episode, but he is not here with us. But that's all right.
But
one day
he liked it.
One day we're gonna bring the mobile uplink unit out to Hermosa, and we will do a Bujenski cast. Let's see. Melissa Price Fry says a favorite of hers that Dougie and she wore went as a pair of dice made out of boxes and spray paint. It's very easy, very cute. That's kind of cool, going as dice.
Yeah.
Sort of like the robot costume. Our friend Peyton, a.k.a. Steve Cowley, said that he handed out candy dressed in a cowboy hat and a Ronald Reagan mask. This was 87, 88. So that's a pretty good one.
There you go.
Oh my goodness, you look naked in that picture.
Yeah.
Still legendary.
Our friend Kevin Scott, a buddy of his, and he used to dress as Michael Myers, him, and Leatherface. Kevin Scott. He'd stand in the streets staring at kids and adults, trying to freak them out. Well, as we all know, junior high kids aren't scared of anything, and they were more than happy to tell him. While they were doing that, I was hiding with my chainsaw, real gas-powered one, sans chain, of course, and when I felt that they had done enough talking, I cranked it up and ran at them. Not once did they stick around. The best was the one time when a mom was with them, pushing a baby in a stroller. As soon as I appeared, she screamed, "Oh, hell no!" and ran, leaving her baby and a sack of candy.
Whoa!
No, we never went after little kids. 10 and up was fair game, which is a nice thing to hear. Yesterday I took Felix up to the farm not too far from here up in Moore Park, and we were having a lot of fun. There was a little kid who was very excited to like scare the really little kids, the toddlers, when they came out of the tunnel. And obviously Felix got really upset when like a 8-year-old like yelled boo at him. And I was just like, I'm not going to tear into this kid because he's 8. I was just like, I talked to him as if he were an actual person.
Yeah. And he said, hey, fucking knock it off, you piece of
No,
shit.
I was just like, you don't need to yell at the little kids, like, and then I punched him in the face.
Yeah,
No, I
exactly.
didn't, but
Exactly.
I
I was waiting for that.
You little shit. I'll fucking kill you.
Bill Howerton and his wife. Bill went as a hunter and his wife went as a deer. There's actually a picture that he posted on my Facebook page.
killed her.
Christian DMZ. Well, he mounted her. We didn't even. You think we worked that out? Oh, thank you, Bill, for setting me up for that. And
was
anyways,
great.
Referencing back to my earlier thing, and we'll be wrapping up in a moment, by the way, just for so get your final comments in there in the chat. Matt and KC reminded me. He's talking about my Bob Dole costume. There was one of those Norm Macdonald SNL sketches where he was Bob Dole. They had Bob Dole join the Real World house, and it was like a whole thing. Hooray, Bob Dole's peanut butter. So thank you for that. Dominicus Saxon dressed up like a Catholic priest once and got a free breakfast at McDonald's. That wasn't even on Halloween. Good for you, Dominicus Saxon. Dominicus Saxon is one of the proud new owners of a Bladtcast t-shirt.
Hey.
And at some point, Will Sterling has one. He just doesn't wear it.
Yeah.
But at some point, I was like trying to get people to do retweets and things. Basically, at this point, just ask me if you want one. If we have one in your size, I'll go ahead and send you one.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of them still. And there are, unfortunately, as of yet, we don't have 2X. So we have up to XL. The smalls might be gone, but let me know what you need. Go ahead. What do you need, kid?
Yeah.
Your first taste of Bladtcast t-shirts is free. So just to let me know. Jason Blair went as Lil Wayne one year, but didn't do the Bladtcast, the black-faced.
Wow.
Was that a weird?
didn't do the blackface.
What a weird Freudian slip that was. I just did a what? Welcome to the blackface.
Oh my God.
Then I said Bladtcast instead of blackface.
Yeah.
That's how you know we've been
That's
going
gonna
for
be
almost 2
that's
hours.
the name of my podcast. It's just about it's just about things that used to be okay that are completely unacceptable.
And by the way, speaking of costumes, I believe that our pal Gene in Philly is joining us here, and he said that he's sitting here with Bert in Berlin, joining the little video party. Oh my, Bert! And Gene would dress up his voice as different characters.
Yes.
But I don't know, actually. I wonder if he had costumes. Although Gene would say, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Those are all my actual friends.
Right.
Things like that.
Leo and Richmond.
I forgot about Leo and Richmond.
Yeah.
And I think Leo and Richmond actually fooled Dennis once, unless I'm mistaken. Matt and KC liked when Will said, "Joy to the world, motherfuckers." Dominicus Saxon says that's going to be his new catchphrase in The Office.
Yeah.
Which I cannot wait to see.
I'm pretty sure that's in the new Die Hard movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joy.
Joy to the world, motherfuckers.
Pretty sure that's actually the Netflix Punisher Christmas special is actually called that. And Matt and Casey points out that the Clean and Happy Soap Company, the official soap of the
yes.
Bladtcast, loved it. There's no such thing as bad press.
Clean and Happy Soap Company. Selling products you can just clean your body, rub it between your legs.
Hey, do you
Make
have
sure
a dirty ass? Do you need to clean up those duty booty shorts?
No matter how dirty you are, the Clean and Happy Soap Company wants to be part of your life. So please, take a whole fistful of Clean and Happy Soap and just put it where you want. Anywhere. On your own person, not on anyone else.
On your own
person. You want to eat it? Great. Go ahead and eat it. You want to give yourself a, what do you call those things?
Enema?
Oh, an enema. Yeah, exactly. An enema.
I knew we were
I knew
anal
you
insertion.
were
Is that what we're talking about? Wait,
What? Kevin Scott said that Linda Carter sang "I Was Made for Loving You" back in the day.
What?
The Kiss disco hit.
I love that song.
Kevin Scott has left, so I'm not going to get that anymore. And by the way, just to sort of tidy up from when Coltrane was still here, Jason Blair says that Coltrane is officially nuts. Gal Gadot is the hottest woman on screen since Catherine Zeta-Jones in The Mask of Zorro.
Wow.
That's a very specific,
very specific.
comparison, but she was really hot in that
She
movie.
looked great.
I
Yeah.
mean, are you really hating on Entrapment when you get to see her booties like sliding under some
wires
nice
and stuff?
yarn?
There's a nice yarn.
Anyway, We had fun today, didn't we,
did have
guys?
fun, yeah.
And, we're basically, the audio running time might be a little shorter because of somehow I just lost my mind in the middle of the show. But we're at like an hour 58 right now. So it's almost like we got to keep talking until we get to the 2-hour mark, right? Because we want people to hate the Bladtcast. Still not going to be the longest episode, though.
Nope.
2 hours, 15 minutes. Bladtcast 60, talking
Have
about
we
Amazing
taken up
Spider-Man 2.
More of your time than you wanted us to?
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the Bladtcast. We take up all of your time.
Clean it. Wednesday, October 25th. Game 2 of the World Series down to 78 degrees, but it's going to be heating up, folks. It's Sunday,
October
29th.
29th. Houston and the Dodgers all knotted up 2-2 in the World Series. Knotted up here in the World
Balmy
Series.
89 degrees here in Los Angeles.
So, special thanks to Coltrane for driving with us,
Yeah.
which was kind of fun. It was like we were on a road trip with Coltrane.
I mean, also not kind of fun.
because of the ambient noise.
Yeah.
Well, this is what was happening at the time. I wanted to have him be a part of the show.
Did he know in advance?
We had an exchange that went unanswered earlier in the week, so I followed up today. I don't know. His life is his life.
I get it.
This is when we have to do it. This is when he had to drive. I had no problem with that.
yeah.
I love that he was here at Coltrane Leaks. Of course, huge thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. There ended up being 10 at one point. That was the peak. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here as part of the Bladtcast. And I should also thank everyone who's always a part of the Bladtcast. We have the regulars who are always the ones to reshare the link, post, comment, all the good stuff. And, Ed Bernal, somebody who's never been on the Bladtcast, but he always posts it. And, of course, Matt and Casey, Bladtcast, Superfan, Uber fan, everything right there. He's our guy. I know I'm talking while I'm winding down. Will,
Yo.
tell people where they can find the Motivation Report.
MotivationReport.com, Twitter at Motivate Report, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Can you do that slower so I can text while you do it?
MotivationReport.com, on Twitter at Motivate Report. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get most podcasts.
Thank
Black-faced, you can hear it.
you. In 10 years. 10 years.
Blatface should be it.
Blackface.
Blastered.
That'll be an episode.
Blasted.
Jeff Winstead would like me to teach Bladtcast 251 to fill the time. I didn't even know Jeff was there. I knew that he retweeted the link, but he didn't want to join into the comment.
Retweeted the link.
Jeff, we're going to get not only to go out of the house and see a movie, I think he's going to drive to Los Angeles and see Thor Ragnarok with us.
Whoa.
And that'll be Bladtcast 251. And then Bladtcast 252, I believe he'll also be with us. So Dominica Saxon says, never stop, guys. Bladtcast 500 is right around the corner. That's a full D. So again, thank you to
want
each
that
and
full
every
D.
person.
Gotta get that full
You'll get
D.
that full D in another 4.5 years. But thanks again to everybody who's a part of the Bladtcast, and I mean Bladtcast Nation. And of course, at Will Sterling, at Jeff DeRay. And yes,
I will Sterling _
what did I say? Oh, you're right. Will Sterling _ I'm sorry.
Fucking old man.
I wish you could just buy it from me.
I can't.
But thanks again for everybody who joined us for more than 2 hours of Bladtcast video fun. The link is still up at bladtcast.com if you're just listening to the audio version. And we will see you next time on the Bladtcast. On the Bladtcast.